Chapter 1: The Golden Finger That Arrived 19 Years Late, Ace Agent in the Film and Television World by Yedion Shia. Parallel World, January 2000, a dormitory at the University of London. William Devlin raised both hands and traced a hexagram in the air. A golden magic circle bloomed. He pulled his hands apart, and the circle stretched into a shimmering golden rope. With a flick of his wrist, the rope shot several meters across the room, looped around the back of a chair, and tightened. William tugged hard. The chair flew toward him, and he snatched it out of the air. It was exactly the sort of magic he'd seen in Camartage in the Doctor Strange movie. William closed his eyes and reached out with his mind, sensing everything in the room. He could even feel the coins tucked under his bed. He tried to summon a mage hand with his mental power, and to his delight, it worked. The coins lifted as if by an invisible hand and floated into his palm. William stared at the coins, excitement written all over his face. He played with the golden rope, making shoes and chairs bang loudly against the walls. The noise didn't go unnoticed. A furious bang sounded at the dorm door, and a voice outside yelled, "Oi, mate! Are you on something? It's late! Shut it! If you don't stop, I'll call the police." William hurried to open the door and apologize. It took a while to calm his neighbor down, but eventually the student stomped off. William closed the door, lay back on his bed, and let his thoughts drift to the strange events of the past few days. What had started as unease was turning into exhilaration. He had been living in this parallel world for 19 years. 3 days earlier, a series of beeps had awakened him. Beep, beep, beep. Energy charging complete. Marvel Universe system activated. First-time system activation grants basic magical knowledge. Charging? What kind of system needed 19 years to charge before activating? A flood of knowledge and memories poured into his head, and he blacked out. The next morning, he woke with a bruised, dizzy feeling and a mind suddenly full of foreign facts. Magic? Marvel lore? He had never heard of magic in this world. William, who had been called Chen Mo in his previous life, raked his fingers through his hair and tried to make sense of it. This world was different. The King of England here was a man named Philip. The President of the United States was Benjamin Arthur, and at one point in recent history, the U.S. had even had a British-born female president. Everything was off from the life he remembered. In his previous life, he had been Chen Mo, an ordinary 22-year-old office worker from Xinjiang in Greater China. On the night it all changed, he'd gone to his second uncle's house for his cousin's 20th birthday. He drank with relatives until late, even beat his 4 drunken uncles at a finger-guessing game, and went home elated. He lay on his balcony, enjoying the summer breeze and watching Avengers 4 on his phone. Halfway through the movie, a thunderstorm rolled in, and a bolt of lightning split the sky, striking nearby and knocking him unconscious. He'd been out for a long time, 18 years to be exact. When his brain was finally ready to reconcile those lost years, memories returned in a rush, and the two lives merged. He was part British, part Chinese. His mother, Lena Devlin, had met his father in Switzerland during a ski trip 18 years earlier. What started as a romantic 7-day holiday ended in disaster on the 7th day when an avalanche separated them. Lena had been buried shallowly and rescued. William's father, Chen Jing, was never found. Lena returned to England grieving, and 3 months later discovered she was pregnant. All she knew of the father was his name, Chen Jing, a 25-year-old from Modu who had gone to Xinjiang by boat in '75, and nothing else. Lena searched Xinjiang and Modu and eventually gave up. William never knew whether he had any paternal relatives in the Great Celestial Dynasty. Fortunately, Lena still had her parents, who helped raise William after Lena took on the struggle of single motherhood. But when those grandparents died, one after another, when William was 10, life grew harder. Lena worked tirelessly to put him through school. Growing up biracial and raised by a single mother, William had always felt a bit out of place among the English kids. He had few friends and threw himself into his studies. His maternal grandfather, Henry's aristocratic background, had given him early encouragement to learn, and once the memories from his previous life merged into his mind at 18, his intellect sharpened further. He ended up at the University of London studying computer science. To most people, William was a bookworm. He'd never had a girlfriend. Then, 3 days ago, the beeps had started. Beep, beep, beep. Marvel Universe system charging complete. Initiating startup. Host William Devlin, welcome to the Marvel Universe system. A system? William stared in disbelief. He had literally been struck by lightning while watching Avengers, and now, a whole Marvel Universe system. He tried to summon it mentally. System? He waited. Nothing. He begged, prodded, and tried to coax the silent program to respond. The system did not offer a cute assistant or a helpful tutorial. It was frustrating and infuriating. Why did it need 19 years to charge? Finally, he commanded, "Activate system." A vast torrent of information poured in. It took him some time to absorb what the system was. It wasn't some omniscient learning machine that would spoon-feed him, a foolproof, beginner-proof interface instead. If he could understand a piece of knowledge, the system would teach him how to learn it. Technology, magic, abilities. If he could grasp the concepts, he could acquire them. He spent hours staring at the syllabus of technology and magic. Some basics, natural science, introductory computer science, basic mathematics, were within his reach. But advanced topics were opaque. He wished the system would just download everything directly into his brain. Still, there was a consolation prize, a basic magic cultivation curriculum. Magic in a world that hadn't heard of magic made William cautious. He wouldn't show it publicly, but he'd always wanted superpowers after watching countless superhero films. The magic course was explained simply and thoroughly. Even a complete novice could understand the theory. He sat cross-legged on his bed and began to practice. Soon, bright points of light appeared in his mind. Red, green, yellow, gold, silver, tiny motes that settled into order. They were magic elements, he realized, and somehow he just knew it. The system's structure meant that once he understood the theory, the practical knowledge followed almost instinctively. His current mind was the fusion of two adult souls. It was flexible and razor-sharp. Learning felt faster than it had any right to be. For days he practiced whenever he could. Eating, sleeping, everything else took a backseat to training. Tonight, he finally mastered his first spell, a magic rope akin to what sorcerers from Camartage used. It had many uses. It could bind an opponent, slice through obstacles, summon things at a distance. The mage hand was already proving invaluable for trivial things. A pen across the room could fly into his hand without him leaving the bed. On top of magic, the system had seeded his mind with Marvel World technological knowledge. With the right effort and resources, he could build high-tech inventions that might make him very rich. A grin spread across his face. Ha! He thought. He was going to get rich. The next morning, Monday, William woke, showered, dressed, packed his bag, grabbed a sandwich, and headed out for classes. He was a second-year computer science student at the University of London, and he couldn't afford to skip. His mother, Lena Devlin, had worked 2 jobs to put him through school. The last thing he wanted was to disappoint her. He had fully accepted the memories and emotions of William Devlin. His 2 identities had merged, and his gratitude for Lena was genuine. For now, school was where he had to be. There was too much in his head he didn't yet understand. Professors and library stacks could help him make sense of the system's vast catalog. He still hadn't decided what he wanted to do with all this power and knowledge, but one thing was certain. He would learn, and he would not waste the second chance he'd been given. Chapter 2. It was the year 2000. William knew, from his previous life, which companies and technologies would make money, but he had neither capital nor skills. He was just a poor loser. If he suddenly revealed a revolutionary technology, he wouldn't be able to hold on to it. Capitalists and rivals would try every means to suppress, threaten, and buy him out. He didn't know whether the authorities might capture him and dissect him for their own purposes, and he certainly dared not use magic in public. His current strength couldn't protect him. Firearms were still a real danger. Besides, if he wanted to openly become rich and enjoy life, it would be impossible to be an enemy of the government and society. It was far better to keep a low profile and develop discreetly. He hadn't learned magic to conquer the world, and anyway, he couldn't. For now, he wanted to figure out how to improve his and his mother Lena's lives. January marked the beginning of the second semester at the University of London. With a shoulder bag slung over his shoulder, William hurried into the main lecture hall of the computer science department. Professor Roy Stephen arrived shortly after, carrying a cup of coffee and a stack of books. In 2000, computer science hadn't yet reached the era of cloud computing and big data, and artificial intelligence was only just starting to form. What Professor Stephen taught seemed elementary to William, who retained the memories of his former life that stretched to 2019. His mind felt sharper than before. Throughout the lecture, William found it effortless to follow along, mentally comparing the material with the knowledge in his Marvel Universe system. When the class ended, he was still hungry for more. He hadn't yet figured out how to change his circumstances. Whatever he tried couldn't be too difficult or too advanced. Ideally, it would be game-related, something that wouldn't draw dangerous attention. After all, very few people would come after someone just for a computer game. After a full day of classes, William sat on a bench by the campus lawn, staring at the withered grass and thinking about what he could create to raise a little startup capital. Two women passed behind him, chatting about a zombie movie one of them had watched the previous night. "It was so scary, I couldn't sleep alone in the dorm," one said. "I didn't sleep a wink," the other replied, rubbing her eyes. William glanced up at the two women as they walked by, brave for January, wearing skirts despite the cold, and then turned his gaze back to the lawn. Suddenly something clicked. He slapped his forehead. Plants vs. Zombies. He could make that. The smartphone version of Plants vs. Zombies hadn't even existed yet in 2000, but a game from 2008 could be adapted to run perfectly well on a PC. He could reduce the pixel count if necessary. If Counter-Strike could handle LAN battles, running a small single-player game would be trivial. In the late 1990s, single-player games were the norm in Europe and the United States. The market was huge. 8 years later, Plants vs. Zombies had proven its appeal. William could develop a single-player version himself. Yes, it would be a bit challenging with his current technical level, but he had a system. Any gap in knowledge could be filled from the system, from professors, or from library materials. William felt a rush of excitement. He grabbed his bag and ran back to his dorm. At his desk, he fired up his computer and furiously drafted a project proposal. After checking it, he began coding, pausing occasionally to learn from the system in his mind. For more than 10 days, he moved constantly between the library, the classrooms, and his room. He visited professors more times in that short span than he had in his entire freshman year. His knowledge grew rapidly, and as he built the game himself, his understanding deepened. Bit by bit, the project took shape. When the first playable files were on his screen, William beamed. But the next problem loomed: how to promote Plants vs. Zombies. He had no money and no distribution channels. The first priority, he decided, was registering the copyright. If he registered the story and game rights, he would at least have some protection against being exploited. He found a phone booth on campus, looked up the copyright office number in the yellow pages, and called. "Hello, is this the copyright office?" he asked when someone answered. "Yes, this is the copyright office. May I have your name and how I may help you?" A woman replied, "My name is William Devonshire. I'd like to register the copyright for a game, both the story and the game itself. Can you do that?" "Sure," she said. "You can call me Katie. Is your game original, an adaptation, or derivative?" "It's original," William said. "Then that's fine. You should register the story copyright first, then the game copyright. Please bring your original manuscript for the story and a game design draft for the review. May I have the address?" 11 Catherine Street, London. We're open Monday to Friday. Check our website for the required materials, and you can make an appointment by phone. The earliest available slot is the day after tomorrow. "All right. I'd like to make an appointment," William said. "May I have your full name?" "William Devonshire." "Got it. Come to the copyright office after 8 a.m. the day after tomorrow and give your name. Someone will assist you." "Thank you. Have a pleasant afternoon." "You too. Goodbye." Back in his room, William read through the submission procedures on the office's website, then spent the next day preparing documents. With no afternoon classes, he took a bus to 11 Catherine Street. Chapter 3: Obtaining Copyright and Game Trial. At the copyright office, William told the receptionist, "Hello, my name is William Devonshire. I made an appointment yesterday. The receptionist checked a schedule and nodded. Mr. Devonshire, please follow me. William submitted the required materials under the receptionist's guidance. He made 3 copies of the Plants vs. Zombies story and the game design draft. The original and the copies were stamped by the Copyright Office. He signed and left his fingerprint. 2 copies were kept by the office. 1 he kept, and the original was sealed and bagged. Following the office's advice, he also mailed the sealed original to himself at the post office. If a copyright dispute arose, the unopened postmarked package, bearing dates and stamps from both the Copyright Office and the post office, would be strong evidence. Because his work was an original creation, the Copyright Office said the review would take 3 days. During those waiting days, William kept to himself. He often went to the school's football field and lingered behind one goal. He wanted to test the effects of spells, but dared not use anything visible. He could only try invisible spells that ordinary people couldn't see or feel. Mental powers and mage hand fit the bill. When a ball flew toward the goal, he would subtly apply mage hand to change its trajectory so the goalkeeper missed or the shot went wide. After 2 days of this, the players chased him off the field. Fortunately, they just thought he was bad luck. Since William had been sitting behind that goal, only a few goals had been scored there in 2 days. Chased away, he either attended classes or wandered the campus. One lunchtime, he ran into a bully from the rowing team who had beaten him before. The guy was carrying a tray and chatting with a pretty girl. William seized the moment. He used his mental power to lift the bully's right arm. The tray flew off and landed on the girl's head with a splat. William felt a pang of pity for her, but the bully was stunned. He had felt his arm lifted and couldn't understand why the tray had slipped. As the bully chased after the girl who was storming off, William used mage hand to snag the bully's foot after only a few paces. The man went down hard, face first on the marble. When he stood, he had 2 teeth missing and blood in his mouth. William felt an odd satisfaction. This was payback for the bully's earlier attacks. No one suspected him. Mage hand was invisible and intangible. He did wonder, though, whether modern instruments might detect subtle energy fluctuations. At a place like the University of London, he had to be careful. If school equipment picked up something weird, he'd be in trouble. With no money and little power, too much attention could cause him problems. He resolved to use magic sparingly. While eating lunch, he thought about how to promote the game on a shoestring budget. Mark Zuckerberg had spread Facebook slowly, college by college. Could he do something similar? A single-player PC game in 2000 could catch on. This version of Plants vs. Zombies would be richer than a mobile port, more grid spaces and higher replayability. William borrowed some mechanics from Tetris and divided the game into 3 difficulty levels: easy, medium, and death, each with different zombie speeds. Every 10 levels completed would unlock an additional defense lane. There would be a total of 10 defense lanes, 4 more than in the later mobile version, making the game significantly tougher and more replayable. Chapter 3. The game's lifespan should be longer than in my previous life. The initial release only had 69 levels, but after the second version, it could expand to 99, then 188, and so on. Eventually, it could even become an online mode, a 4-corner map defense game like the Warcraft RPGs. William thought the idea had huge potential. In less than 3 days, he received a notice from the Copyright Office. His certificate was ready, and the remaining fees were due. The next morning, he left the office, clutching the envelope. The first step in this world was complete. Now, he could promote the game the way he wanted. After getting the copyright certificate, William took the disc with the game on it to the university's Game Interest Society. London University had countless clubs, and the Game Society was where students brought their own games for others to test for playability and bugs. Successful projects often attracted the attention of publishers. What William wanted was the society's influence among students. If the game caught on at London, it wouldn't be long before it spread to other universities and high schools. Then, finding an agent would be much easier. The Game Interest Society occupied the ground floor of a 3-story building in the computer science department, which housed the school's computer labs. The second and third floors were ordinary lab space for professors and students. The first floor was taken up by student-run groups. William pushed open the door to the Game Society room. Inside the 90 square meter space, more than 30 sponsor-built PCs lined the tables. Dozens of students clustered at screens, arguing and laughing. A few were sketching or coding on the blackboards. Occasionally, a heated argument threatened to boil over. William had been a member before, so people already knew he'd been working on a game. When they saw him walk in with a disc, they knew it was ready. A tall, lanky white guy with curly hair spotted him and screamed, "Hey everyone, look who it is! Isn't this our genius William Devonshire? Come on, show us the game. Let's see how a genius's game plays." William didn't like the guy at all. He talked nonstop and had no self-awareness. He could blather for an hour without repeating himself. No wonder nobody took him seriously. "Come on, Wooster," Richard Dirk said, pushing the chatterbox aside. Richard and William were on good terms. Only William puts up with your nagging. Go bother someone else. William felt the irritation flare. He hoped never to speak to Wooster again, but he didn't want to make a scene. He'd been friends with these people once. No need to pick fights. He smiled and said to Richard, "All right, mate, come see what I made. I think you'll like it." He guided Richard to an empty PC, slipped in the disc, and installed the game. He wasn't worried about piracy. He'd registered the copyright, and if the game took off, he'd be happy to put it on the university machines. After installing it, he gave Richard the seat and stood behind him, coaching. Word spread fast. Within minutes, 24 people had gathered behind Richard. He'd never played the computer version before. It was much tougher than the mobile iteration. William kept explaining strategies, but Richard struggled. William watched him miss basic moves and felt his impatience grow. After a few rounds, when Richard still couldn't clear the early levels and ignored advice, William stepped back and let him figure it out. The more the game punished him, the more energized Richard seemed, which William still didn't understand. Some players seemed almost masochistic. The harder the game hit them, the happier they got. "Quick, use the cherry bomb," someone shouted. "No, use the chili pepper here. It saves 25 sun." By the time Richard reached level 19, half the room was crowded at the screen. He finally fell on level 25. "Oh, what a shame! Richard, you idiot. I told you to put a tall nut earlier." "Get off, Richard. Let someone else play. You can't hog it." "We're not hogging it. Eric's got the disc. We can all play." "Sweet. William, install it for me, will you?" A swarm of students turned to William and clamored for the disc. He handed it to the classmate nearest him and immediately watched the crowd move in. Seeing experienced gamers scrambling for it made him quietly relieved. Strategy games like this had a dedicated fan base here. 3 hours passed. The whole room played Plants vs. Zombies. Latecomers, surprised by the commotion, stopped to watch and then joined in the conversation. These weren't idle kids. They were smart enough to get into London University, and many now looked at William with fresh respect. He glanced at his watch. It was nearly noon. The group had been at it all morning, and no one had finished the game. William climbed up to the blackboard wall, clapped his hands, and called out, "Hey everyone, stop for a minute." After a few summons, the room quieted and heads turned. William took a breath. Gamers could spot a good title when they saw one. If this went well, he might be onto something. "You all know games are made to be played," he began, "but the goal is also very practical, to make money. If this game sold for £5, would you buy it? As a thank you for your time today, I'll give each of you a free copy." Cheers went up immediately. £5? Of course, most good games go for at least £8. "William, I'll buy 4 copies right now if it's £5. "That's cheap, no problem." Their enthusiasm boosted William's confidence. He let the chatter die down and said, "Listen, many of you know my situation. I don't have much money, and I can't get a big publisher to pick this up. I've thought of a plan, and I want to know if you'll go for it." "Say it, William. Whatever it is, we'll hear you out. But seriously, make sure you registered the game. You'll get into trouble otherwise." Robert Carter from the law faculty said. Robert and William had become friends through the society. He'd been one of the few who'd reminded William to register. "I did," William replied. "I filed for copyright on the story, the game design, the plants, the characters, Everything that can be registered. I got the certificate yesterday. That's good, Robert said. William continued. If you're all comfortable with a £5 retail price, and some of you think it could sell for more, here's my idea. I'll sell copies to you for £4, and you sell them to classmates or friends for £6. You each make a profit, I get distribution, and the game spreads by word of mouth. Can you accept that? The room erupted with excited voices as students began to discuss logistics and who would take how many copies. William let them talk, feeling the first real momentum behind his idea. Chapter 4. As soon as Chen Mo finished speaking, the students in the game room erupted into excited chatter. That's a great idea. If you really do that, I'll place an order right away. The last EPS game I bought cost me £12 and wasn't nearly as fun as yours. I think I could sell 100 copies. Only 100? I could sell over 200. I could sell 200 just in my community. There are tons of primary and secondary school kids there. They'll go crazy for a game they like. Hey, Ryan, you really are a marketing student. How did I not think of selling in the community? I was just wondering how to notify my classmates and friends. That's perfect. This game will definitely be popular where I live. Maybe we could apply for a display area at school, set up a few laptops, and let alumni try it out. If it becomes popular at our university, we can promote it at others. What do you think? That's a good plan. Let's try it at our school first. Guys, let's form a sales team. Trying it at school won't take much effort or money. Anyone want to join? You can sign up with me. Count me in. I want to help. Me too. We could apply under the School Game Interest Club. If we apply today, we might get a reply by tomorrow. Chen Mo listened as everyone eagerly discussed promotion strategies, and his chest swelled with a quiet joy. In the end, more than 50 people agreed to buy the game discs from him at £4 each and sell them for £6. He knew that price was actually low for the moment, but with the game unknown, a low introductory price would help it spread. He'd still make more than £3 per sale, and having 50-plus classmates promote it essentially gave him 50 unpaid salespeople, not expensive and full of enthusiasm. After all, every copy sold meant profit. Many of the students were veterans in the scene. Several had developed games themselves and knew what made a game good. Chen Mo recruited Robert Carter and a few other top law students to serve as legal advisors in return for 25 game discs apiece. Once terms and legal details were sorted, Chen Mo took out paper and pen and asked everyone for their names and the number of discs they wanted. Most were first-time sellers and didn't request many. The minimum anyone asked for was 10. A handful of marketing students asked for over 200 each. When he totaled the orders, Chen Mo felt a sudden rush of surprise. The list added up to 1,150 discs, an average of 20 per person. After Robert and the others finalized the legal paperwork and read it aloud, Chen Mo used the game's copyright as collateral and collected a £4 deposit per disc, promising the discs would be ready within a week. He'd already checked disc pressing rates in London. Under 10,000 discs cost £0.8 each. 10,000 to 50,000 cost £0.6, and over 50,000 cost £0.5 apiece. He remembered that in 2000, a disc in Greater China had cost only 5 RMB, but that hadn't been a legitimate copy. Legitimate products could go for much more. His brother-in-law in his previous life had paid over 100 RMB for an official copy of Warcraft. After everyone paid and signed, Chen Mo held £4,200 in his hand and felt exhilarated. This was his first real capital since being reborn, and he hadn't expected such an easy start. He went back to his dorm, grabbed the master tape, and immediately rushed to the disc pressing company he'd contacted. The company could produce fewer than 10,000 discs in under 3 days, so he'd set the 1-week delivery window partly to allow for unforeseen delays and to reassure the alumni. He'd used the game copyright as collateral because if anything went wrong, some of those 50-plus classmates might look for trouble. Some already acted as informants for game companies. He didn't want to take that risk. At the pressing company, Chen Mo decided to press 5,000 discs outright. 5,000 would cost £4,000 and take 3 days. With the remaining £200 and some money he already had, he planned to register 2 companies during those 3 days. After Robert had explained the tax landscape, Chen Mo felt he needed to set up a corporate structure immediately. Personal tax rates in the UK could reach 50% for annual incomes over £150,000, while corporate tax on annual profits above £300,000 hovered around the mid-20s. After 2012, it dropped further. Legitimate tax planning was common and legal. Huge firms like Apple and Starbucks used international arrangements to move profits and minimize local tax liabilities. If it was legally permissible, it wasn't a crime, and Chen Mo intended to make the most of it. That same day, he went to a company formation service and registered 2 entities. One, registered in England, he named Devonshire Industries, after his own surname, imagining it becoming a national pillar like Stark Industries. The other, registered in Ireland, was called Ireland Import and Export Company. Because both were registered within the British Isles, he received operating licenses for both the next day. On the morning of the 3rd day, Chen Mo used the Irish company to sign the pressing contract for 5,000 discs and paid. He transported all the discs to his dormitory and called Robert, asking him to come over to help with some contract work. Robert arrived soon after and knocked on the door. "Robert, could you help draft a few legal documents?" "Of course, I'll pay you for the work," Chen Mo said as soon as he let him in. Robert looked puzzled. "What legal documents?" "I took your advice the past 2 days and registered companies," Chen Mo replied. "One is Devonshire Industries, registered in England, and the other is Ireland Import and Export Company, registered in Ireland. I want to put the Plants vs. Zombies copyright into Devonshire Industries, then contractually authorize the Irish company to sell each Plants vs. Zombies disc for £1. Robert stared, amused and surprised. "Buddy, are you sure you're a computer science student and not a law student? How do you know about tax avoidance like this? If the funds don't go through an Irish bank, Ireland can't tax them. Clever move." Chen Mo smiled inwardly. "This is the simplest approach. If you knew Apple's methods, you'd be even more surprised." "I read up on this stuff in my spare time," Robert said. "But will signing contracts like this cause legal trouble?" "What trouble could there be?" Robert replied seriously. "You're not the only one doing this. Many companies in the UK use similar structures." After Robert helped draft the authorization contract, Chen Mo pulled out a box with 50 discs. "You know my situation. I can only give you this for now. When I get more money, I'll treat you to a big meal." "No problem, Chen Mo. You're going to be rich soon. I've got to butter you up so I can intern at your company later." "Aren't we law students supposed to serve the wealthy?" Robert joked. Chen Mo laughed. "No problem, Robert. When I make it big, I'll hire you as my legal counsel." "Deal," Robert said happily, high-fiving him. They joked a while longer, discussed details, and then Robert left. Chen Mo spent the rest of the day arranging pickups. Alumni came to his dorm and collected the discs they'd ordered. After the last person left, he ate dinner and lay on his bed, a little adrift. After half a month of non-stop work, the sudden lull left him listless. He decided to meditate. He hadn't practiced magic much over the past 2 weeks. He still hadn't figured out how to use it safely and covertly in the real world. He didn't dare reveal he could use magic. There was no public evidence magic existed in this world, and he didn't want to be seized by authorities, studied, or worse. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Chen Mo settled into a meditative state and turned inward, focusing on the inner pathways. He discovered his mental power had grown significantly. What had been the size of a sesame seed 15 days ago was now like a walnut. Chapter 5. Learning to Open a Portal. Chapter 5. William stared, baffled. He hadn't been cultivating at all over the past few days, so how had his mental power jumped so much? A soft ding echoed in his mind. Host's mental power has entered the elementary stage. You can now learn any magic on your own. After that, the system went silent. So this is elementary mental power. A system bonus, maybe? William wondered. Does that mean I won't have to sit in meditation every day? Will my mental power grow on its own? Is it because my soul is stronger than most people's, or because of the system? As he reached inward, he felt a rush of magical knowledge and spells forming in his mind. He realized the key. As long as his mental power could control a spell and he could comprehend it, he could learn any magic. There were no frustrating level gates. Smiling, he raised his hand, and a small ball of flame coalesced in his palm. With a flick, it expanded into a half-meter ring of fire. He held it for over 10 minutes before a subtle fatigue crept in. A few days ago, as a low-level mage, he could barely sustain that flame for under a minute before becoming exhausted. Now he felt only a twinge of tiredness and could probably maintain it another quarter hour. His mental power had multiplied dozens of times. "That's hot," he muttered, opening the window to gulp fresh air. Leaning against the sill, he thought about how to use magic without getting caught. If only I had Mystique's shapeshifting, could change my appearance, mimic fingerprints. Then no one would link anything to me. Once I learned the Camartage portal spell, nobody could catch me. Yes, portal magic first. Perfect for escapes and assassinations. He shut the window, drew the curtains, and focused. "I want to learn the Camartage portal," he told the system. The portal's techniques imprinted in his mind. Following the system's instructions bit by bit, he practiced. Perhaps his soul transmigration gave him a special affinity for spatial magic. He picked it up unusually fast. Before long, he was able to sketch the portal's circle on his dorm room floor. For safety, he set the destination to his own bathroom. He didn't want to risk opening to an unknown location. After dozens of tries, his mental power locked on the bathroom. The circle flashed, and a shimmering doorway opened. Through it, he could see every corner of the bathroom from his bedside. Excitement pushed aside caution. He stepped through. Standing in the bathroom, William turned his hands over, grinning. "This is amazing," he breathed. "I actually learned it. Who can catch me now? This is perfect for getting out fast, or getting in." Chapter 6, Game Release. William spent the next hour teleporting back and forth between bed and bathroom, turning the room into an experiment field. He jumped to his desk, then to the wardrobe, opening portals more than 10 times until his mind signaled fatigue. He sat, meditated, and to his surprise, his mental power recovered in under a minute. He felt like a prodigy. He imagined tactics: teleport to an enemy's flank, unleash a machine gun barrage, follow with concentrated magic. If he ran out of power, create a retreat portal, rest a few seconds, then teleport back to strike again. Who could stand that? Camartage even had defensive spells that could act like impenetrable armor against bullets. William's head buzzed with possibilities. He branched out, learning fire, ice, and nature magic. He even found light magic, healing beams, light projectiles, and astonishingly, resurrection spells. He froze at the last one. Resurrection? That's forbidden territory. He dove in. "I have to learn that," he decided. The system delivered the cultivation method for resurrection. He read it and frowned. It wasn't technically difficult, but it required something called sacred faith. William wasn't religious. What was sacred faith exactly? And his mental power wasn't high enough anyway. He swallowed his frustration. Skills were skills, and more options were never bad. Maybe someday he'd figure out the faith requirement. He practiced ice and fire spells. One advantage of this system was flexibility. Spells lacked rigid forms, so as long as he could shape and control them, he could make ice manifest as needles, spears, roses, or balls. Fire and lightning could take many flowing shapes. Using magic only sapped his mental energy. There were no physical side effects. Training spatial magic even seemed to boost his physical conditioning. Camartage mages were known for high endurance and strong close combat ability. They were often called close combat mages for that reason. After mastering a few defensive spells, he decided the dorm was unbearable for serious practice. The room was too small and shared, too many people around. He needed a place of his own. That night, he went to bed with a rare sound sleep, unaware that others were not asleep. Across town, Alexander Hammer was having a very different evening. Alexander, a bright marketing student at the University of London, had picked up 200 game discs earlier that day and dropped them off at his place. He lived in a middle-class neighborhood in Zone 2, tens of thousands of residents, a familiar, busy community. After dinner and a quick chat with his mother, Alexander took his laptop and 20 discs to the community basketball courts. The courts were crowded, dozens of teenagers among a scattering of adults, and he knew most of the faces. His plan was simple: demo a new game developed by an alumnus and sell copies. He booted up his laptop at the rest area near the courts and started a demo. At first, the small circle testing it watched quietly, unfamiliar with the game. Within half an hour, though, arguments erupted: where to place plants, who should defend what. Passers-by stopped to watch. The louder the debate, the more people crowded in. The trouble began with Rick, who hogged the laptop and refused to yield. Alexander watched as the others grew angrier and angrier until he stepped in with a sales pitch. Save yourselves the trouble. These discs are £6 each. Buy one and play at home instead of fighting over the laptop, he said. The offer landed. One by one, they agreed. Rick's monopolizing didn't make people want to play less. It made them want their own copy more. Alexander sold out his first 20 in minutes and rushed home for the rest. By the end of the afternoon, all 200 discs were gone. People who'd missed out begged him to bring more tomorrow. To calm them, he promised to return at 4 p.m. the next day. Perfect timing for kids getting out of school. Those who paid ahead would get theirs first. When the crowd dispersed, Rick swaggered over and asked Alexander how his performance had been. He'd put on a show to rile people and draw attention. Alexander feigned surprise and gratitude. "You were acting the whole time?" he laughed. "You gave me the boost I needed. Treat me to dinner, then. We'll call it a victory meal." They went to the local community restaurant. Nothing fancy, but generous portions and cheap. Old friends and small celebrations had often been held there. Back home that evening, Alexander burst into the kitchen. "Mom, guess how much I made today?" he exclaimed. His mother did not share his excitement. Instead, she looked at him with worry. "Where did you make money? How? Alexander, you didn't get into trouble, did you?" Chapter 6. Alexander looked at his mother's puzzled face, slapped his forehead in mock helplessness, and said, "Come on, Mom. I'm a top student at the University of London. How could I be doing bad things? I'm not stupid. I've got a good future ahead of me." "So where did this money come from?" his mother asked. "You've only been home a short time. Where did you earn it?" Alexander grinned. "You wouldn't believe it. Today was my lucky day. I sold 200 game discs in less than 3 hours at the community basketball court and made £400. His mother's surprise turned to delight. Alexander beamed, pleased that he could help ease his parents' financial burden. "What game could make you £400? His father asked from the doorway. "It's a game developed by an alumnus from my school," Alexander said. "A lot of classmates think it's great. We bought discs from him at £4 each, and I sold them for £6 at the court. They flew off the shelf. A lot of people couldn't even get one. After my classes tomorrow, I'll pick up more from him. Based on today, I think we can sell thousands of discs in our community and nearby ones. I'll start earning soon, and you and Mom won't have to work so hard." Hearing that Alexander had found a legitimate way to make money and was being sensible, both parents were thrilled. His mother hugged him tightly. "That's wonderful, Alexander. You're amazing. You don't know how hard your father's been working. 2 jobs for your university fees. We haven't bought anything new for the house in a long time." "I know, Mom," Alexander said confidently, "but everything will get better." He felt sure the game, Plants vs. Zombies, had huge sales potential. Chapter 7. Game goes on sale too. The next morning, William was still half asleep when someone started pounding on his dorm door. He lay there trying to ignore it, but the knocking kept coming. Groggy, he swung his legs out of bed and opened the door to find Alexander Hammer, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "Hammer, what time is it?" William complained. "Sorry, William, I was too eager," Alexander said, bursting into the room. "You wouldn't believe it. I sold all 200 discs yesterday, and people were still asking for more. Time is money." He could hardly contain himself as he reported the news. The thought of the £400 he'd made yesterday made him feel that every second wasted was lost profit. William froze for a moment, stunned, then laughed. "All sold out in one afternoon? Hammer, you're amazing. You're a genius." "Of course we're going to get rich," Alexander said. "Don't waste time. I want more discs. I also want to try selling them in other neighborhoods." "Last night I proposed to our professor that I could turn this into a paper, document what we're doing, analyze the sales method and the preferences of young buyers. If the professor likes it, he might recommend it for publication. It's perfect. I can make money and get a paper for graduation. I think I can sell 500 discs a day. That'd be £1,000 a day. I've never made this much in my life. He paced excitedly and finally dug into his pockets. Here's all I earned yesterday, £1,200. Give me 300 copies. William took the money, thought a moment, and shook his head with a grin. I'll give you 500 copies. You can pay me back after you sell them all. Consider it encouragement. Really? You're the best, William. I'll sell them all tonight. Alexander stuffed 5 packages of 100 discs each into his backpack and ran off. William watched him go and smiled. This kid had the drive of a natural salesman. After morning classes, he started getting calls from classmates who'd bought discs the day before, asking for more. William didn't even stop for lunch. He rushed back to the dorm to meet the reseller alumni who were working for him. By midday, students who hadn't come to the game club also showed up with money. By evening, he had over 100 names in his notebook. Orders ranged from a few dozen to 100 each. In 2 days, more than 3,000 discs had gone out. William realized he needed to order more from the manufacturer. At this rate, they could move tens of thousands. He already had around £12,000 on hand, and at 0 at 60 per disc, that could buy 20,000 discs. Should he order 50,000 at once? For 50,000 discs, the manufacturer quoted 50 cents each, but when William called to place a big order, they lowered it to £0.46 per disc and asked him to sign an ongoing production contract. William declined. He didn't want to be tied to one manufacturer. His plan was bigger than London. He wanted Europe, then America, then the world. He'd wait until the product was truly proven before signing any exclusive deals. He finalized the order at 6 p.m. and paid a £10,000 deposit, agreeing to take the goods in 2 batches so his cash flow wouldn't choke. He hurried back to the dorm with a pizza, not even stopping to accept the manufacturer's dinner invitation. Before William could take a bite, Alexander burst in again, breathless and triumphant. He emptied his backpack, counted out £800, and handed it over to William. After selling 500 discs that day, Alexander still had £2,200 left, enough to cover the cost of another 500 discs. He grabbed a slice of pizza and, after wolfing it down, took another 500 discs and left. In the following days, William's operation grew even faster. He was shipping around 3,000 discs every day. Over 150 students at the University of London were now selling for him. He was no longer anonymous on campus. Classmates who had once ignored him were suddenly friendly. Lots of attractive girls greeted him. Some were direct about wanting to help. William thought, not without irony, that many people, students especially, were pragmatic. Money mattered. Small game publishers in London began approaching him with offers. The highest bid was £1 million. William laughed it off. He'd already sold nearly 50,000 discs and taken in almost £200,000. £1 million was an insult, not even enough to buy distribution rights for London, let alone the full copyright. He refused. After the first 50,000 discs, William placed an order for another 100,000. The fact that 50,000 could be sold in a single city had blown past his expectations. Marketing students made up a significant fraction of his sellers, and many used Alexander's project as a legitimate reason to go out and sell. Some ambitious resellers even reached middle schools and other universities in surrounding cities. Online, more and more people were asking where to buy Plants vs. Zombies discs. The school also started taking notice of the marketing case study, a product first catching on in universities, then spreading to younger students and into society at large. When something becomes popular among children and teens, parents pay attention. Within schools, if one student's into something, friends quickly follow. Nobody wants to be left out. If a product clicks with teenagers, it can ripple through society without huge advertising spends. After Plants vs. Zombies sold 150,000 copies in London and nearby areas in less than a month, a major publisher finally approached William. Chapter 8. Game merchandise is the most profitable. After hitting 150,000 sales, William stopped producing discs himself for a while. He'd learned that £6 per disc was too cheap. Some sellers at university were marking them up to more than £10, which added real profit. By then, he had established a vast reseller network. Many were earning solid side income, with a few top sellers like Alexander moving hundreds of discs a day and making thousands in pounds. The game's popularity made William's name known across campus and beyond, and companies began to take the opportunity seriously. Merchandise, William realized, would be where the real money was, but that came next. For now, Plants vs. Zombies had shown how a product could explode through grassroots, peer-to-peer sales, and William's small operation had proven the idea on a scale he'd never expected. Chapter 7. By the calculations, William was losing out on hundreds of thousands of pounds, but he had no choice. His priority now was to make the game famous. If he sold each copy for more than £10, he might only move 50,000 units. The game had already taken London by storm. Its sales and glowing reviews had drawn the attention of major game companies, EA, Ubisoft, large distributors, supermarkets, and even Blockbuster from the United States. The money he was spending now, hundreds of thousands, were investments, payments to the many university alumni who had been selling the game in London, and advertising to attract the big players. A few days earlier, he'd started receiving inquiries from these companies asking to discuss agency deals or purchasing the rights, so he went to one of London's top law firms. Anthony, a senior partner at Moores Rowland Solicitors, charged £1,000 an hour. Negotiations like these would take days, possibly 10 or more. William grimaced at the thought of the bill, but he'd signed an hourly contract. If it had been on commission, he'd have no idea how much he might owe. They booked a conference room at the Hilton. At 8 a.m., William met Anthony on the dot. William shook Anthony's hand and grinned. "Good morning, Mr. Anthony. It's 8 o'clock. Does the clock start now?" Anthony, knowing William was joking, smiled back. "Good morning, Mr. Devonshire. If you'd rather start 10 minutes later so you feel better about it, we'll start at 8:10. "I don't mind." "Ha, Anthony, you're funny. I like you. All right, let's get down to business. I need you to handle all my legal matters. No problem, right?" "Of course. That's what we do. I guarantee any contract handled by our firm will be solid. That's Moores Rowland's commitment." William had hired the firm for exactly that reason. After greeting Anthony's four-person team, he headed into the meeting room where representatives from EA, Ubisoft, Blockbuster, Carrefour, and several major distributors and publishers were already seated. For £1,000 an hour, he had London's best counsel. He didn't begrudge the fee. If anything went wrong because of inexperienced lawyers, he wouldn't have a chance. William walked on stage with a microphone. "Welcome, gentlemen. My name is William Devonshire. I'm the game's creator, designer, and owner of Plants vs. Zombies. I know your time is valuable, so I'll be brief. Over the last few days, many people and companies have approached me. I expect you're here either to buy the game's copyright outright or to act as a sales agent. Am I right?" Heads nodded. Everyone had sent people to see him in recent days, but William had kept his cards close. The attendees were optimistic, but cautious. "I'll state my bottom line up front," William continued. "If the gap between what I can accept and what you can accept is too wide, please stay quiet until I finish. Understood?" They all exchanged looks. They were competitors. None wanted to be the first to reveal their position. They nodded. "Let's talk agency first," William said. "The agency price I can accept is £8 per disc, roughly $13. I think selling Plants vs. Zombies for $20 retail in the United States is perfectly reasonable. You're all experts. Popular games in the US don't retail for less than $20. Can you accept £8 per disc? If so, we can continue." EA and Ubisoft hadn't come for distribution deals, but they didn't want the rest of the room to drive up the agency price and push William into walking away, rendering their trip pointless. They quickly signaled acceptance. The distributors, who specialized in distribution rather than development, knew William was right about price and nodded reluctantly, feeling a little sore about it. Blockbuster and Carrefour also agreed. "Good," William said. "Since everyone accepts £8, let me give you some context. In London alone, we sold 150,000 game discs in 1 month. I won't distribute that figure lightly. This is why you're all here. And there's additional data you might not expect. He looked at the Carrefour representative, who smiled and nodded. 20 days earlier, William had signed a licensing agreement with Carrefour for merchandise, t-shirts, hats, and the like. The contract covered 5 counties around London. In the first 15 days of sales, those 120 Carrefour stores sold 430,000 licensed items, an average of 3,600 items per store over 15 days, or about 240 a day, bringing in £6.45 million at an average price of £15 per item. Except for Carrefour's people, everyone heard that number for the first time. Merchandise was where the real money was. If peripherals sold millions in just a couple of weeks in 5 counties around London, imagine global potential. Copyright enforcement in Europe and America was strict. Clear cases almost always won in court. Carrefour, which had expected to push merchandise, was suddenly in a very strong position. William let the silence settle, then said, "If any of you want full copyright to Plants vs. Zombies, what price should I ask? I don't think selling 1 million copies on the European continent is a stretch. I believe we could move over 3 million in a few years." Faces around the table tightened. That estimate matched or was only slightly below their expectations. This was a game that could appeal to every age group. William added, "In the United States, 2 million copies wouldn't be a problem, and other countries could account for another roughly 2 million. Gentlemen, consider what a property that could sell 7 million copies plus vast merchandise could be worth to you." They all thought the same thing. That kind of scale meant enormous wealth. One of the Blockbuster people, who had been listening closely, leaned forward and spoke bluntly. "So what price are you talking about if someone wants the full copyright?" "Starting at £100 million, William said. A stunned gasp swept the room. A few distributors muttered, "Are you insane, Mr. Devonshire? 100 million?" William met the gaze of Blockbuster's representative, Wood Morris. "If Blockbuster can make over £300 million in revenue after spending £100 million, I don't see why you wouldn't consider it. It could even help your IPO plans next year, Mr. Morris." Wood's face flickered. Had William seen through their boardroom plans? He felt exposed, which made him uneasy. Blockbuster had indeed been preparing to go public. In the original plan, the timing was right. William's directness unsettled him. He cleared his throat. "I need to report this to our board. I can't make a decision on £100 million today, Mr. Devonshire. I think we should end the meeting here." William smiled. "Very well, let's adjourn for now. I'll expect to hear from you in 3 days, Mr. Morris." He shook hands with the room, ignored a few distributors who hoped to finalize agency deals on the spot, and left with Anthony and his legal team. They went straight to the business suite William had booked at the Hilton, a pricey suite, £600 a day, with an office area over 40 square meters. Anthony studied the young man in front of him. According to the file, William Devonshire was born on December 7th, making him barely 19. Anthony couldn't hide his admiration. "Congratulations, Mr. Devonshire. You're on track to become one of the youngest billionaires in England. You've changed how I see this generation. Well done." William took a glass of wine Anthony poured and smiled. "Thank you, Anthony. I think we should sign a new contract. I didn't expect things to move this quickly. 3 days from now will be crucial. I've heard that Blockbuster is planning an IPO. I need your firm to work closely with me, prepare a plan, release the right information, and attract more potential buyers. Often, when more parties compete, the price goes much higher." Chapter 8, Anthony nodded. "Yes, Mr. Devonshire. Hourly contracts won't do. You need monthly law firm to handle this as your full-service counsel. We'll take care of the preparations. This deal involves over £100 million. I think a 1% commission should satisfy you. Anything higher would be inappropriate. And if this closes, I'll hire you as my personal lawyer," William said, meeting Anthony's eyes. "What do you think, Anthony?" Anthony hesitated briefly. 1% of £100 million was over £1 million. Monthly law firm was one of the best in England, but he wasn't the only partner. Dozens of senior partners and hundreds of others shared the work. £1 million fee for such a straightforward case was rare, and even if the firm took it, it might not be his turn to benefit. On top of that, his personal retainer was £300,000 a year. Opportunities like this didn't come every day. He didn't delay long. No problem, Mr. Devonshire. Our firm will take the case. Then to a pleasant cooperation. William extended his hand, and Anthony shook it. William tapped his glass against theirs and downed the scotch in one gulp. Inside, he breathed easier. I never expected to be a billionaire so quickly. With this 100 million, the plan after March can go even more smoothly. After Anthony and William re-signed the contract, Anthony said, Mr. Devonshire, now that I'm your lawyer, there's one important thing I should remind you about. Go on. You need to involve banks and an insurance company. With sums this large, you want insurance to guarantee the funds. Also, we should plan sensible tax arrangements, decide whether to receive the money in England or in other jurisdictions. Is there a difference? William asked. Yes. If you want the money fast, you can pay an insurance premium. If the buyer fails to pay on schedule, the insurer will pay you first and pursue the buyer for the recovery. As for the bank, if you put the funds into an account in England, they'll be taxed. If you place them in secretive banks or tax havens, Switzerland or the British Virgin Islands, for example, you can avoid most taxes since England doesn't collect tax worldwide like the US does. It does make repatriation difficult. Bringing the money back into England legally can cost as much as just paying corporate tax here. The benefit is that you'd be free to spend and invest outside England without affecting domestic finances. The biggest risk is reputational. If the public learns you paid virtually no tax, your standing in English society could be severely, possibly fatally damaged. Many people have been investigated for that. Even if nothing sticks, the scrutiny over several years is a huge hassle. My suggestion is to set up a company in the British Virgin Islands and transfer half of your English company's shares to it. That way, your company in England would only pay tax on half the profits. Also, small and medium-sized companies can claim very generous R&D tax relief, up to a large multiple on qualifying research expenditure. Mr. Devonshire, how much did you spend developing the game? William blinked. Hard to say. Outside of basic food and electricity, I don't think I spent much. I did everything myself. Design, programming, even the plant and zombie art. Anthony stared as if he'd heard something impossible. He had assumed developing Plants vs. Zombies had cost tens of millions. You didn't spend anything? His head ached at the thought. All right, William, I knew you were a genius, but not to that extent. I'll put together some legal, reasonable tax strategies and report back in a few days. William watched Anthony's incredulous expression and said, I have one condition. Everything must be legal. Of course, Mr. Devonshire. I guarantee every method will be lawful. No legal loopholes will be exploited. That's what our firm does best. Good. Oh, and Anthony, help me release some of the meeting's details to the public. Don't mention the final price. William lowered his voice. No problem. As long as you're ready for paparazzi whenever you step outside, I'll help handle the publicity. William laughed. I'm probably prepared for photos by now. This won't stay secret for long. Anthony looked relieved. It's good you're prepared. I was just thinking how to reassure you. You don't act like a 19-year-old. I just hope the news doesn't break too quickly. We're not ready. Nobody expected Bestar to value the game this much. William, are you aware of something? No, I didn't expect Bestar to have an IPO plan already. Everything's moved too fast. Damn, Anthony. I think we should finalize the British Virgin Islands company this afternoon. I have a hunch we don't have much time. William's mage-trained intuition nibbling at the back of his mind made him uneasy. His intuition was sound. Not far from the Hilton Hotel, in a small car, John Taylor of the Sun was trembling with excitement. I'm going to get rich, he kept muttering. I'm going to be famous. After 5 or 6 years as a reporter, I finally have a scoop. He'd followed Dennis Wise to the Hilton the night before, hoping for gossip shots, but had waited fruitlessly. After 7 in the morning, he and his colleagues switched shifts. John went into the hotel pretending to be waiting for someone, actually looking for his high school friend Claudio, who worked at the Hilton. After about 10 minutes, John slipped away to the restroom to wash up and then returned to the lobby to wait. Around 8, he saw Claudio and gave him a knowing look. Then he walked calmly toward the restroom again. Claudio followed shortly after, but as soon as he entered, he grabbed John by the collar and hissed, "Are you crazy?" I'm on duty. If the supervisor sees me, I'll get fired. John didn't push it. Claudio had served in the British Army and had left due to injury. Relax, John whispered. It's only the two of us in here. I followed Dennis Wise to the hotel last night. Dennis Wise? The one who equalized against AC Milan at San Siro? Claudio whispered back. That's him. He's hot right now. If we get photos of him cheating or anything juicy, we can sell them to the Sun for at least 10 grand. You'll get half. That's 3 months' salary. Claudio scowled. I got notice yesterday that some big companies are meeting here today. I'm assigned to a conference room at 9. Damn it, why now? It's wrecking my chance to earn. I was planning to buy my kid a birthday present. What time does the meeting start? John asked. 9. Why? We still have time. Dennis hasn't come out. Go set up the conference room. I'll keep my phone on vibrate and wait in the lobby. It won't take you long to finish. When you see Dennis, call me. Maybe you can plant that bug you showed me. That was never going to happen. Claudio's voice was firm. I'm not risking being a commercial spy. If I get caught, what happens to my wife and kids? Come on, we'll just listen. If it's unusable, I won't run it in the paper. I haven't lived long enough yet. Don't worry, we'll be cautious, John promised. Claudio hesitated, then took the voice recorder John offered reluctantly. I won't give it to you first. If you want to mess with big companies, wait until you're famous. I don't want to see you end up in jail. Screw you. I won't go to prison, John muttered. All right, I'm going. Keep an eye on my phone. Claudio left for the conference room. John paced the lobby all morning, growing anxious when no call came. He was about to ring Claudio when Claudio called instead. Hello, Claudio, how's it going? Has Dennis Wise come out? John asked eagerly. Chapter 9. John, forget about that little runt Dennis Wise. John, I think we're going to be rich. Do you know what I recorded in the conference room? John, we're going to be rich. Your paper will definitely pay a fortune for this recording. Claudio imagined tens of thousands of pounds from the newspaper. With that money, his finances would finally improve. He called John Taylor eagerly. Wait for me, John. Send your assistant away and meet me at your car. And remember, this stays between us. He hung up. Hello? Hello? John Taylor said into the line a few times, then noticed the call had ended. Remembering Claudio's instructions, he turned to his assistant. Pete, it's noon. Go grab lunch. Take a break and wait for my call. Pete watched John hang up and saw the look on his face. He guessed there was something John didn't want him to know. Okay, John, I'm starving anyway. Want me to bring you something back? You eat first? We'll talk if I need anything. If I do, I'll call, John said. All right then, Pete said, opening the car door and heading off to the restaurant. John didn't wait long. Claudio, who had been watching Pete go in from a discreet distance, slipped into the car as soon as Pete was out of sight. Damn it, Claudio, what could be so secret that you're so cautious? Let me hear it, John demanded as soon as Claudio slid in. Don't rush. I'll play it for you now. Remember, we split it 50-50. And you know my skills. You won't be getting the recorder from me, Claudio warned. All right. Play it. Claudio reached into his inner jacket pocket. He didn't pull out the recorder. Instead, he pressed the play button through the fabric. He'd been a hotel employee for years, and this was the first time he'd used the tradecraft he'd learned in the army since retiring. He'd avoided glancing at colleagues, obtained the recorder without raising alarm, and stashed it away. During lunch, he'd listened to the file with headphones outside the hotel and fast-forwarded to the relevant part. Now, he pressed play. A young man's voice came from the pocket speaker. Welcome, gentlemen. My name is William Devonshire. I am the game's creator, designer, and owner of Plants vs. Zombies. John Taylor knew the name. His younger brother had raved about the game and bought a copy. The recording continued. Plants vs. Zombies had sold 430,000 units in London and the 5 surrounding counties in 15 days, generating £6.45 million at an average of £15 a unit, and the game could sell 7 million discs total. John's face lit up. His hands trembled. Then the recorded voice said plainly, starting bid, £100 million. John nearly trembled out of the car seat. He had stumbled on a blockbuster of a scoop. If everything in that recording was true, it could shake England's gaming industry and the world. Companies and agencies would scramble for the rights, The information had clearly been suppressed. And most explosive of all, apparently this young William Devonshire had done the whole game himself. Investigate everything. I, John Taylor, will dig into you, William Devonshire. I'll find everything, even if it's embarrassing. This was a golden opportunity for promotion and fortune. John hugged Claudio, then impulsively kissed him on the forehead. Claudio, you're my lucky star. Damn it. We're going to be rich. Nobody's getting this recording for less than £50,000. Claudio beamed. 50,000 sounded like a fortune. Maybe his army lessons had been worth keeping after all. After a moment, John composed himself. Claudio, we don't have any photos of him. Is William still at the hotel? We need his picture. We need to dig up everything about him. Make the Sun run this on the front page. Yes, I saw him this morning, Claudio said quickly. God, that guy is unreal. He's about to be a billionaire, and he's damn handsome. The world isn't fair. Forget God, John said. We wait at the hotel entrance and get his photo today. Come on, Agent Claudio. If I had your skills, I'd have made a fortune ages ago. He tried to pull Claudio toward the hotel entrance. Wait, John. Let's drive somewhere nearby first. Somewhere we can make a quick getaway, Claudio suggested. They agreed, parked a short distance away, and prepared themselves. Claudio even turned his jacket inside out and borrowed John's hat and a mask. They sat, cameras at the ready, waiting for William to appear. William's instincts had been prickling all day. He felt something might go wrong, but he didn't expect to run straight into Claudio and John, waiting at the hotel entrance. Quick, quick, John! That young man coming out now is William Devonshire. Get his picture! Claudio hissed. They'd only been waiting a few minutes when William emerged with a small group. John raised his camera and fired off a dozen shots. As William stepped out, he felt eyes on him and turned to see two paparazzi crouched by a flower bed, one snapping photos. He frowned, agitated. His first instinct was to cast a quick ice spell to freeze the photographer in place so he couldn't run. But this was the hotel entrance in broad daylight. Using magic here would draw far worse attention. He forced his hand down and instead raised it in a friendly wave. Anthony, beside William, saw the photographers too and barked, "Who are you? No photos." He called to his intern to deal with them and demanded the memory cards. John and Claudio were sharp, one a veteran paparazzo, the other a former Special Forces soldier. Seeing someone who looked like a lawyer approaching, they bolted across the street into a car and away. That decisive, practiced getaway left William dumbfounded. This is English paparazzi, he thought. They'll take his pictures no matter what. He had intended to pay to buy the shots back, but with them scarpering like that, he didn't get the chance. He didn't yet know his morning remarks had been recorded. If he had, he'd have had Hilton Hotel pay for the breach. By the time he found out about the tape, it was already the next morning. Seeing the paparazzi sprint off, William told Anthony, "They've noticed me, Anthony. We need to speed things up. We have to secure the company's shares this afternoon." Anthony considered it and said, "Mr. Devonshire, the fastest option is to buy an already registered company in the British Virgin Islands. It'll cost some money, but it can be done in an hour or two." "All right, do it," William decided immediately. "Follow me, Mr. Devonshire." Anthony hustled William into a commercial vehicle and drove to the registry office. Half an hour later at the registry, William paid £10,000 to acquire an offshore company in the British Virgin Islands. He moved 60% of Devonshire Industries' shares in England into that offshore entity and instructed Anthony to register 5 more offshore companies. He planned to split that 60% among the 6 companies, each holding between 8 and 12%. He'd use the same approach for future ventures. In 2000, England couldn't tax its citizens' global income the way the U.S. federal system could, so keeping funds out of English bank accounts could drastically reduce his tax burden. Sitting in the registry, bored between signatures and forms, William wondered what he would do with that rumored £100 million. He thought back to novels he'd read in a past life about Alibaba and Tencent, those meteoric growth stories, and about other bargains that had paid off. If the Nasdaq crashed, perhaps he'd buy into some undervalued companies. A lucky long-term investment could multiply many times over. Being able to spot those chances made him smile. He felt like someone who'd gotten a second life and a second chance to pick up hidden bargains. After a few hours and dozens of signatures, the transfers were complete. By 4 in the afternoon, Devonshire Industries was no longer an onshore English resident company. The government couldn't easily collect taxes from the offshore entity. Pleased at the prospect of saving millions in taxes, William treated Anthony and his team to dinner at a Michelin 3-star restaurant. The meal was fine, but he found it underwhelming and not particularly filling. "I'm still a country bumpkin," he sighed. "I'm about to be a billionaire, and yet I'm still thinking like a small-town boy." After dinner, Anthony drove William back to the Hilton and then headed off to his law firm to work through the remaining contractual details. Negotiations would begin in 3 days. The main terms would be William's, but the lawyers would haggle over the fine print. William returned to his room and idly watched TV. Nothing interested him. He didn't dare practice magic in the hotel in case of hidden cameras. Besides, with his system, his mental power would grow naturally. He didn't need to cultivate magic intentionally. That made the whole process convenient. Unable to sleep from the day's excitement, he put on his jacket and went to the hotel bar, hoping a drink would help. Led to a stool, he ordered an Irish whiskey and sat alone, nursing the glass while the Premier League played on the bar's television. Chapter 10. Chelsea were playing the Magpies. This wasn't the Chelsea of the Abramovich era after 2003. The club chairman was Ken Bates now. Once hailed as Chelsea's savior, Bates's influence had long since faded. He ran the club like a businessman, selling off the best players for a profit, and the fans resented him for it. William, a complete novice when it came to football, didn't recognize most of the players on the pitch. Without big names to follow, the match held little appeal. It was simply something to pass the time. "Which team are you rooting for, young man?" A voice came from beside him. William turned and saw a middle-aged man holding a glass of whiskey, smiling and raising it toward him. The man looked familiar, and for a moment William was sure he knew him. Then he realized why. Pierce Brosnan, the actor who played 007 in his world. "Isn't that Brosnan?" William thought, uncertain whether the star could be here. He stared for a beat too long. "Hey, young man, it's rude to stare," the man said, a hint of annoyance in his voice. William flushed. "I'm sorry, sir. I thought you looked familiar. My apologies. Hello, I'm William Devonshire. It's a pleasure to meet you." The man's polite smile didn't change. He spoke with a flawless London accent. "Perhaps you've seen me before." "Hello, William. My name is James Bond. A pleasure." William blinked. "James Bond?" The name landed with the absurdity of a practical joke. "Pierce, really? Getting deep into character, huh?" He hesitated, unsure whether the man was joking or simply eccentric. The man watched him for a long moment and, deciding William was being deliberately rude, bristled. "Hey, that's twice I've told you. If you don't want to talk, say so. I won't bother you." He turned away and took a sip of his drink. William's conscience pricked him. "Sorry, Miss Pierce. I didn't recognize you earlier. Let me buy you that drink," he said, signaling the bartender and ordering 2 of the same whiskey. He pushed 1 glass across the bar. The man accepted it with a nod. "All right, then. I accept your apology. But my name is James Bond. Was I unclear? Or do you know someone named Pierce who looks like me?" "Don't joke," William said with a roll of his eyes. "Everyone knows you're Pierce Brosnan. You're killing me." The man smiled without loosening his formal tone. "No, I'm James Bond. Perhaps I should go check this Brosnan you speak of and make sure he hasn't seen God." He downed his whiskey, set the glass down with deliberate gravity, and looked William in the eye. "We'll meet again, kid. Remember my name next time you see me, and don't mistake me. Good night." William watched him stand, straighten his suit, and leave the bar. He felt oddly deflated and oddly stunned. Was the man playing a joke? Did celebrities have to be this theatrical? He laughed inwardly at his own discomfort and went back to his hotel. After a shower, William thought it had been lucky to run into him. The man had been strange but harmless, a celebrity's eccentricity. He only regretted not getting an autograph. Sitting at the hotel computer, he searched for Pierce Brosnan, hoping to find the reason the actor might be in London and perhaps catch him later. A bunch of unrelated Pierces came up, but not the one he'd seen. "How is that possible?" he muttered. Pierce Brosnan is a major star. He can't just not be findable. He was about to type 007 into the search bar when his mental power, the new, oddly tangible sixth sense that had come with being a beginner mage, prickled a warning through him. Instantly alert, his hand froze over the keyboard. He stood, scanned the room with that mental awareness, and ducked out of the computer's line of sight, moving to a place where the window couldn't see him. His mental range had grown since he'd begun learning magic. He could now sense objects and presences over 20 meters away. From his 12th floor room in the Hilton, he scanned the 6-story building across the street. Nothing there. He scanned the corridor outside his room and the neighboring rooms. Nothing tangible. Then he remembered the moment he'd almost typed 007. His mental alarm had gone off right then. If the alert had triggered at the thought of typing 07, something was monitoring his computer. He checked the obvious places first. There were no cameras in the room, but on a hunch he inspected the hotel phone and found a small listening device. He swallowed hard. He was being monitored. He replayed his recent behavior in his head. He rarely practiced magic in public, and when he had done so in the dorms, he'd used the system's silent mode, minimizing the chance of discovery. If he had been careless anywhere, it had been minimal. Still, the presence of a bug meant someone had decided he was worth watching. He closed the curtains, took his jacket, and left the room by the stairs. No elevator. Common sense. The Hilton didn't have as many cameras as modern hotels, and he scanned each floor as he descended. The hotel was quiet. It was off-season. 3 floors were empty, and the rest had only a handful of guests. Room by room, he checked for signs, but found nothing molecularly incriminating until he reached the 4th-floor stairwell. Outside on the street below, a delivery van idled where delivery vans shouldn't be idling at such an hour. William felt the spy movie cliché click into place. He moved down to the 2nd floor and, out of sight on the side of the building facing the van, used Mage Hand to open a small utility room window and crouched, listening. Sound through the glass was faint. He considered the spells available in the system and found one described like a stethoscope. He could simulate his mental power as a focusing instrument. He expanded his awareness into a virtual head and pressed it to the van's window, channeling the other end into his ear. Voices became clear. "Pete, this guy's still awake? There hasn't been any movement for over an hour." "Who cares? Why did Command make us watch him? He's just a college kid. What's so special?" "Heh, you just don't know. This guy's been on the list for years. We never found anything. Lately, he's been doing things again, so Command told us to watch. Fat Richard was kicking himself this morning. Said he overheard this guy in a hotel conference talking about designing a game and selling it for £100 million. Rich had every chance. If he'd kept tabs on William Devonshire, he might have bought it early and made a fortune. But he didn't. Swapped shifts, looked like a man who's lost God's favor. 100 million? What kind of game is that? They called it Plants vs. Zombies, I think. No idea. What? Plants vs. Zombies? I played that game. This guy made it? How could it be worth 100 million? Mind you, look at his file. Nothing weird. Single-parent home, grew up in London, top grades, awards, no girlfriend, always in the library or the dorm. What's Command see in him? Maybe he's handsome and lonely, emotional problems? Why would MI6 care? Read the file properly. This kid developed the whole thing by himself in less than half a month. Design, programming, even the art, all of it. Cybersecurity guys say a team would take months to produce that if they even understood the concept. This guy did it alone. The voices trailed off as William's heart hammered. MI6 had been watching him, not the fictional Pierce Brosnan, but real intelligence operatives, and they were talking about his game. Plants vs. Zombies, £100 million. His mind spun with implications he hadn't expected and dangers he hadn't anticipated. Chapter 11. This guy is insanely powerful. No wonder the higher-ups are watching him. Of course. Why else would we be tailing him? From what I can tell, they want to recruit him. They value him a lot. Didn't you see Bond came out with us? I wonder what conclusion he'll reach after meeting this guy. But he's mixed. He's got great heavenly dynasty blood. Pete, what century are you living in? Don't start with that racist crap. No, I'm not racist. My current girlfriend's a chocolate-skinned beauty. You think I'd be racist? Heh, sure. With you, as long as she's pretty, you don't care about skin color. You swap girlfriends every few months. Shut up. I want something steady, but missions pop up all the time. I'm gone for months sometimes. What do you want me to do? I think you'd be happy to change every month. You bastard. That's slander. A phone buzzed in the car. One of them answered. Someone's coming to take over our shift. Bond's already gone back. Boss wants us to report in. That's a relief. After the report, I can actually get some sleep. I didn't sleep until 1 yesterday, and the boss had me up before 6. Heh, you were at your girlfriend's place last night, weren't you? She didn't drain you dry, huh? Shut up. Watch it or I'll... Their bickering filled the car. William listened for another half hour, heard nothing more useful, and slipped back to his hotel room. Inside, he breathed out a long, quiet sigh. Thank God they hadn't discovered his magic. If they had, there wouldn't be just one pair of watchers, there'd be a whole division on him. It looked like the intelligence service wanted to recruit him and had been probing him for a while. Bond had even said he'd been keeping tabs on him for years. Was this really just reconnaissance? William didn't know. Bond must be interested in something specific about him. But what? He turned the possibilities over in his head and could verify none. He wasn't going to reach out to them and announce, "I know you're watching me." That would just invite suspicion. Better to play dumb for now, especially with the game release so close. No trouble, no surprises. He slept the night through. Early the next morning, before he'd even gotten out of bed, his phone rang. Anthony, his lawyer. Hello? William, sorry to call early. Do you have a copy of this morning's Sun? Read it, and then call me. William hung up, groggy, and asked the front desk to send a copy of the Sun to his room. He just brushed his teeth when someone knocked, and the attendant handed over the paper. She was pretty, glanced up at him, and winked. Sir, that's today's Sun. William gave a polite smile. The attendant, encouraged, leaned in. Do you need anything else, sir? Our hotel can handle anything you want. He barely heard her. The front page photograph stopped him cold. His face, a big half-body shot with a headline beside it. He took the paper, thanked her, and slipped a 10-pound tip into her hand. No, thank you. If I need anything, I'll ring down. She left on a small, disappointed smile. She'd seen the paper on the way up and recognized him as a handsome young billionaire. An opportunity, she'd thought. But he wasn't interested. William sat down on the couch, the paper open in his hands, and read through the article with growing irritation. The paparazzi had somehow captured exactly what he'd said in the conference room yesterday, word for word, plus his name, school, and even details about his family. It was unnerving. Either the Sun had an uncanny source at the conference, or their reporters had more access than they should. Looking at the photo of his mother, Lena DeVenture, featured in the center of the spread, he felt a fresh spike of worry. He called his mother. After a few rings, Lena answered. Hello, William. Good morning, Mom. Is something wrong? I'm just about to go to work. If it isn't urgent, I'll call back at noon. He could hear her shutting a car door. He bristled. Mom, didn't we agree you wouldn't work so hard anymore? I can support us now. You don't have to. Oh, darling, I didn't break the agreement. Her laugh warmed the line. I actually wanted to surprise you, but I used the £1,000,000 you gave me to buy a little coffee shop on Oxford Street. I've always wanted one. I feel like I belong there already. William relaxed. He'd given her $1,000,000 from the merchandising money he'd earned. He'd gotten 20% of gross sales, not just net profit. The merchandise pulled in $6.45 million, giving him $1.29 million. He'd told her to use the money however she wanted. He hadn't expected a whole coffee shop, but it suited her. Mom, you don't have to go early, he said. I just want to see it, she replied. If I don't, I'll be fidgety. Don't worry, I'll be careful. He hesitated, then steered the conversation to the paper. Listen, did you get a copy of The Sun yet? Lena's tone turned animated. What? The Sun? William, are you dating some celebrity and got caught by the paparazzi? Don't tell me you're pregnant. I'm not ready to be a grandmother. If you got into trouble, I'll beat you to a pulp. He laughed despite himself. No, Mom, not that. Please, buy The Sun and read it. After you've read it, go home. Don't go to the coffee shop today. All right, I'll go get a copy now. I want to see what amazing thing you've done to get in The Sun. They hung up and William waited, uneasy and impatient. He knew his mother would call the moment she'd read it, and sure enough, less than 10 minutes later his phone rang. He barely got it to his ear before a shriek exploded through the line. "William, darling, tell me this is true. Tell me, is it all true? You're going to be a billionaire." Chapter 12. "Yes, Mom, if all goes well, maybe what the paper says is true," William said, holding the phone to his ear. A moment passed. He didn't hear Lena speak. Then suddenly she began to cry. "Mom, what's wrong? Mom?" he asked, alarmed. "I'm fine, William. They're tears of joy," Lena sniffed. "I keep thinking about your grandparents. If they were still alive and knew you were going to be a billionaire, they'd be so happy. It's a pity they didn't live to see it. They went to heaven with such regrets. Grandpa and Grandma will be happy for me in heaven, too. Please don't cry, Mom. Are you at home? I'll come right back," William said, trying to soothe her. "Yes, I'm home. Come back. There's something I want to tell you. I'll be waiting, darling," she replied. "Okay, I'll be there soon. Wait for me." After hanging up, William called the hotel front desk and asked for a car. Sitting in the hotel's vehicle, his mind was on his mother and the emotion in her voice. He urged the driver to go faster. Their house wasn't far from Oxford Street, a small 2-story stone house left by his grandfather. The first floor was about 80 square meters with a living room, kitchen, and bathroom. Upstairs were 3 rooms and a balcony of just over 10 square meters. William had loved spending time on that balcony as a child. Now that he lived at university, 2 of the rooms, apart from Lena's, were rented out short-term, bringing in about £1,200 a month. When he arrived, Lena was waiting for him in the living room. William rushed over and hugged her. Lena clung to him for a long, joyful moment. Seeing her so moved, William steered the conversation gently. "Mom, you said you had something to tell me?" "Yes," she said, but she hesitated, then pulled him down onto the sofa. "William, I never expected you'd become so successful. There are things I feel I must tell you. Do you remember that old castle your grandparents used to take you to see when you were little?" William pictured it after a moment, a castle a few kilometers from Oxford University, its exact size hazy in his memory. "Yes, it was near Oxford University?" "That's the one. It used to belong to the Devonshire family. After the war, Grandpa Henry couldn't pay the inheritance taxes, and the estate was auctioned off. Your grandfather's greatest wish was to buy that castle and the land back, but he never lived to see it. William, when the time is right, will you buy it back and restore its name to Devonshire Castle? It was their dearest wish. Can you promise me?" William didn't hesitate. "All right, Mom. If that's all, I promise. I can buy it and give it to you by the end of the year." He dared to promise because he knew what was coming economically. An impending recession that would crash property prices. Castles were abundant and often neglected. Outside London, the price wouldn't be prohibitive. The castle in his memories had woods, lawns, a small lake, and a river, grand and lonely. If Lena wanted it, he'd buy it and restore it. Chapter 14, newspaper front page, England, February 11. The whole country was talking about one name, William Devonshire, a 19-year-old student at London University. That morning, when people picked up the Sun, the front page made them stop. A bold headline read, "Do you believe it? England's youngest billionaire?" A half-page portrait of William in a suit, smiling confidently and raising his hand as if greeting the nation, dominated the spread. Readers scoffed at first. 19 and already a billionaire? Give me a break, many grumbled, assuming it was another tabloid stunt. But the article wasn't empty hype. The paper published sales figures, Carrefour's half-month sales of t-shirts, hats, mugs, and other merchandise tied to William's game, and the numbers could be verified. If the claims were false, Carrefour would sue. The report traced William's background. He was the son of Lena Devonshire. His father's identity remained unknown. His grandfather had been Earl Henry Winster Devonshire, from the Devonshire line that once held the local castle. That branch had faltered after World War II. Henry had been unable to retain the estate in 1946 because of crippling inheritance taxes. He inherited only a title and a little property. He later worked as a middle manager at London Electricity Company, married, and had Lena as his only child. When Henry and his wife died 10 years ago, Lena had to raise William alone. She worked multiple jobs, saved to send him to university, and eventually bought a coffee shop on Oxford Street, an achievement the paper praised. At first, readers rolled their eyes at the tabloid tone, but then the facts sank in. William was the creator of a new hit game and a marketing phenomenon. In just half a month, his game and its merchandise had generated astonishing revenue. The paper credited him with earning Carrefour £2 million in 2 weeks from licensed merchandise, and reportedly more than £300,000 in part-time wages for London University students who helped with promotion and sales. The story painted William as a quiet, mixed-race kid who had been bullied and kept to his studies, a loner who channeled his time into learning. To his peers, he had seemed a bookworm, save for archery and swimming, but that underestimated him. Industry professionals the paper quoted were stunned. The game, Plants vs. Zombies, had been developed almost single-handedly by William. Designers and programmers who played it couldn't believe one person could produce something so polished in such a short time. The reporter called him a genius, and the nation read and then reread the article, alternating between envy and amazement. Chapter 15. England's Foggy City Needs a Sunflower. What made William exceptional? Plants vs. Zombies is a strategy game, and William had filled every role: designer, artist, programmer, tester. No bugs had yet been found, and even sales and logistics manager. He negotiated disc pressing, arranged distribution, and managed promotion with no marketing budget and few contacts. The printer who pressed 150,000 discs for him charged a standard 46 per disc. That company now regretted not signing a deeper deal. They had turned down further collaboration and watched their chance disappear. Half a month earlier, William had been virtually penniless. After finishing the game, he needed a way to get it into players' hands. His promotional plan was brilliant, precisely because it was simple and exploited his strengths. He began at London University's computer science department, letting members of game clubs and alumni play early copies. After they praised the game, he asked if they would buy it for just £5 a copy. It was a low price. They would have expected to pay at least £8, £10, but the price made the decision easy for students and enthusiasts. £5 was nothing compared to the pleasure of owning something they loved. William then took legal and business steps to protect and monetize the project. He registered the game's copyrights, and for about £100, he set up 2 companies, one in England and one in Ireland. He sold the game's English sales rights to his Irish company at £1 per copy, a move that solved distribution and legal hurdles and allowed him to operate across borders without getting tied up in complex UK licensing issues. The result was a grassroots surge of demand, enthusiastic university buyers, licensed merchandise selling rapidly through established retailers, and a chain reaction that turned a product sold for £5 into a national sensation. The Sun's story captured the shock and the envy of a country that suddenly had a new kind of homegrown genius, one who turned ingenuity, timing, and daring into a business no one had expected. Chapter 13. Why is it like this? Anyone in England or Ireland will know what I mean, so I won't belabor it. After all, it only takes a few people to start something viral. Someone in William Cavendish's circle arranged for University of London alumni to ship game discs at a cost of £4. Those alumni turned around and sold them to classmates and friends for £6. I heard a marketing student at the university sold 200 discs on the first day, £400 in one day. Heavens, I'd like to sell game discs for William Cavendish. As an editor-in-chief for over 20 years, my daily salary isn't £400. Maybe I should start charging William for advertising and copywriting. The game caught fire first at the University of London. Students told students, and soon other universities around London knew about it. From there, it trickled down to secondary schools and primary schools. Once teenagers were obsessed, parents and relatives started hearing about this brilliant new game. In less than a month, Plants vs. Zombies moved 150,000 game discs in London and the surrounding areas. That method of seeding the market, get it popular among students and let it spread organically, was brilliant. They spent virtually nothing on promotion and started making money the moment it launched. William also spent half a day persuading the London manager of Carrefour to stock game merchandise. In a fortnight, they sold merchandise worth over £6 million. Someone who in a month can pull in the interest of big companies, EA, Ubisoft, Bethesda, Carrefour, is a genius, no question about it. When I read that William had publicly set a starting price of £100 million, I was stunned. I don't know whether anyone will actually pay that much, but most game industry agents I spoke to think the title could sell millions, maybe 7 or 8 million discs worldwide, possibly tens of millions. If a disc goes for £8, I'd buy one to see what game could make young people behave like this. And then there's the merchandise. 430,000 pieces moving in a fortnight, millions of pounds in revenue. Will any company pay £100 million for the full copyright? Maybe, but I wanted to tell William to keep it. Hold on to the IP. You'll earn far more than £100 million in the long run. In a few years, this could be England's biggest global game success, a new export of English culture. The sunflower, the pea shooter, the jalapeno, those images might become synonymous with London. People could one day think of them the way they think of Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. William, please don't sell them. Don't sell this chance for London to have something that influences the world. England hasn't had a cultural export like that in too long. This could be a symbol of English victory in the new millennium. Sell it now, and you'll be forgiven by no one. William listened at home as his mother, Lena, sat on the sofa reading this morning's The Sun with theatrical relish. When she reached the last paragraph, Eric, William himself, felt a flare of anger. The Sun loved stirring trouble to sell papers. William could already imagine the backlash. People would mount campaigns arguing he shouldn't sell the copyright. City councilors might object. It was a headache. Still, after calming down, he saw the upside. The Sun's splash, however sensational, made the project more famous. It increased pressure on potential buyers. More bidders would soon surface. Once a game reached that level of awareness, revenue wouldn't be limited to discs and t-shirts. The characters could be everywhere: theme parks, books, movies, TV, plush toys. A property that becomes a global brand is an engine of endless revenue. If Bethesda wanted it, they'd fight for it. This kind of hit doesn't come along every year, and it could be crucial to a publisher's valuation. William allowed himself a private smile. In a few days, he might be a very wealthy man. Blocked at home by reporters. William looked at his mother and felt content. She seemed reborn that morning, full of life, chattering more than usual, relieved about his future and able, finally, to relax. "William, the Sun is amazing," Lena said. "They've dug up most of our family history in one piece. Some bits aren't quite right, but they're mostly facts. It's a pity I can't inherit your grandfather's title because I'm a woman, but it sounds like you might have a shot at the earldom. Aunt Mary Hendricks at Oxford said the Earl of Oxford has been trying for 10 years without an heir." "No, thanks, Mum," William said. "You know how the English nobility are suppressed these days. Nobles don't even advertise they're noble. There aren't many benefits, and there's a lot of regulation. I don't understand why anyone would chase titles." Lena's face clouded. "If it weren't for the inheritance laws, your grandfather wouldn't have borrowed money to secure the title. After he inherited it, he had to sell the family castle and lands to pay his debts. By my generation, there were no male heirs, and he died of depression. His greatest regret was that a distant relation inherited the title after him. When he fell ill, that relative was already anticipating the estate, but he still hasn't produced an heir in 10 years. The title will come back to our family someday." She sounded bitter. William quickly comforted her. "Let's not talk about it now, Mum. What's the point of worrying? We'll see when the time comes. Besides, who knows? Maybe England will reform the peerage. So many people oppose the aristocracy these days." Lena smacked him playfully. "No, the title must be reclaimed, William. You were young then and didn't understand your grandfather's pain. Besides, being noble has its advantages. That's why Parliament watches the aristocracy so closely." All right, William said. "But remember, I'm not pure English. If I tried to claim the title, people would argue. We're fine as we are. You can live the life you want in peace, and in a few years when I have children, the house will be full again." "Don't rush me with grandchildren," Lena protested, laughing. I'm only 39. I'm not ready to be a grandmother. I haven't accepted that you've grown up. The idea of being a granny gives me a headache. It means I'm old." William imagined a tiny voice calling him Daddy, and he felt happiness and nervousness at once. He'd never been a father in his life, let alone twice over 9 lifetimes, and he didn't know how he'd handle a child. "No, Mum," he said quickly. "I'm only 19. I don't even have a girlfriend." "You should get one," Lena said. "Otherwise the papers will say you're gay." At that moment, William's phone rang. It was Anthony. "Hello, Mr. Devonshire," Anthony's anxious voice said. "Have you thought about how to respond to today's Sun story? Maybe we should send them a lawyer's letter. We can't let them be so reckless." William paused, weighing the options. "Not yet," he said. "Today's story, as sensational as it is, does more good than harm. Right now, we don't want to pick a fight with the media. We need them to keep talking about the game. In a few days, the whole country, maybe the world, will know about Plants vs. Zombies. Let them report it, as long as they don't invent deliberate falsehoods. Monitor everything and flag any blatant lies, but don't escalate now." "Understood, Mr. Devonshire. I'll comb through the coverage. I won't trouble you unless something serious comes up. Goodbye." "Goodbye, Anthony. Call me if anything changes." He hung up and opened the curtains. A flash of camera light greeted him, then another. He peered outside and saw his house ringed by reporters. William, can we have an interview?" "Mr. Cavendish, The Times, please. An exclusive?" The Daily Telegraph. The number of press people, the cameras, the shouting, they'd arrived in force. If he didn't go out and face them, he wouldn't get any peace. And this was an opportunity to give out the right messages. "Mom," he said, motioning to the window, "there are too many reporters. I'll go talk to them." "Be careful what you say," Lena warned. "Don't fall into their traps." "I will. Don't worry." He opened the front door and stepped down onto the stoop. Cameras flashed. He smiled and raised a hand. "All right, everyone. I'll answer 3 questions. After that, please leave the street. You're disturbing the neighbors, and they could call the police." The mention of the police quieted them a little, but not for long. Reporters shouted questions from every direction. "Mr. Cavendish, how did you arrive at the £100 million valuation? Do you expect anyone to pay that much?" A woman introduced herself as Linda from The Times. William glanced at her and then back at the crowd. "You've asked 2 questions," he said lightly. "I'll answer them both." He took a breath and spoke clearly. "The valuation isn't plucked out of thin air. Look at the numbers. Discs alone could bring in tens of millions. Our conservative estimate for the UK market already points to over £60 million. Merchandise can far exceed that. After the property becomes a household name, licensing across toys, apparel, books, films, television, and theme park attractions could easily push annual merchandise revenue well over £100 million. That doesn't include the intangible value, the brand lift for any acquiring company. For a publicly traded publisher, owning this IP could drive share price multiples far beyond the acquisition cost. In a market this hot, I wouldn't be surprised if bidders considered offers of £200 million or more. The cameras clicked. For once, reporters were not trying to trip him up. They were listening. William kept his tone measured. He had 3 questions he'd promised to take, and he would make each answer count. Chapter 17. Famous throughout England. The reporters erupted when they heard £200 million. They had already thought 100 million outrageous. Now, after William suggested that buying the game could boost a company's stock by several hundred million, or even $1 billion, they murmured to themselves and found it entirely plausible. With the market running hot, William's prediction might actually come true. Tomorrow's headline was practically written. £200 million is the true value. William watched the crowd fall silent and allowed a faint smile. Buying the game now might indeed lift stock prices, just as he'd said, but after March, things would change. "All right, one more question. Anyone else?" A reporter snapped up the chance. "Mr. Devonshire, are you really related to the Duke of Devonshire? Do you have a claim to a noble title?" William rolled his eyes. This was a trap. London reporters loved that sort of thing. "We're not directly related. If you mean by blood, we share a common ancestor. My branch of the Devonshires was noble 1,000 years ago, long before the current ducal line, but that's where it ends. I wasn't born into a title. My mother has no claim. We're effectively commoners now. Happy? Not satisfied, the reporter pressed on. But our records show the Earl of Oxford has no heir, and you're listed as the sole heir to that title. Any comment? William was taken aback. How could he be an heir? Female descendants normally don't inherit these things. He feigned ignorance. I've answered enough. Let's leave it at that. Please don't block the street anymore. Thank you. He ignored the chorus of demands for more answers. He hadn't come out to dote on gossip. He'd used the press to pile pressure on companies interested in the game's rights. He didn't want any of the other distractions. By February 12th, every paper in England was carrying his story. Reporters dug into his past, visiting his old schools to talk to former teachers and classmates. Serious papers like the Times and the Financial Times ran long pieces about the interview, analyzing how game copyrights could affect listed companies' stock prices and inviting economists and fund managers to weigh in. Many experts agreed with William's assessment, saying there was a high probability he was right in the current investment climate. Television morning shows replayed clips of him, handsome, articulate, and wealthy, and he became a household name overnight. Tabloids went further, unearthing the girl he'd confessed to in middle school and running exclusive interviews in which she expressed regret and asked for another chance. William was bewildered. He could barely remember her face. The downside of sudden fame quickly became clear. William and his mother, Lena, found themselves effectively trapped at home. Reporters camped outside, hoping for a scoop. Two young office workers who rented a room in William's house were nearly mobbed when they left for work. The police had to escort them away. Even the Duke of Devonshire, who rarely did interviews, was cornered and asked about any family connection. The old Duke chuckled at the attention and said he was pleased the Devonshire line had produced someone as promising as William. He recalled meeting William's maternal grandfather, Henry Winston Devonshire, and invited William and his mother to visit whenever they could. Once the Duke confirmed some family ties, the press frenzy intensified. William sighed to his mother, amused. The old Duke knew how to stir the pot. For 3 days, he couldn't leave the house. During that time, numerous companies sent representatives to London, hoping to talk to him, Disney among them. Hasbro wanted to discuss a joint line of Plants vs. Zombies toys. William refused to negotiate piecemeal. He told everyone the same thing. Formal, unified negotiations would take place at the Hilton on February 15th. He'd thought about keeping the Plants vs. Zombies copyright, but after careful consideration he decided to sell. Holding on to it had drawbacks. First, he lacked distribution channels and would ultimately need to license the game, so building those channels himself would be slow and costly. His time was better spent on new projects. Second, he believed a NASDAQ crash was imminent and that IT-related companies would struggle for the next 2 years. It made sense to sell while valuations were high and then buy in after the downturn. Third, if he kept the game, powerful interests would try everything to get it from him. The title had become too famous and too obviously valuable. Finally, he planned to use the proceeds to capitalize on his market outlook, go to Switzerland, hire a bank agent, and arrange substantial short positions on NASDAQ. Even without deep financial expertise, with the right traders, he expected to turn a quick profit. He would keep a portion of the proceeds in England and use offshore companies for international investments, keeping most of the gains outside the UK tax system. Chapter 18. Finally, no longer worried about money. On February 15th, William woke early, donned the suit he'd had tailored on Oxford Street, and let Lena help him knot his tie. Hilton's staff were already waiting to pick him up. The whole nation was watching the auction. Hilton wasn't going to miss a chance to be part of it. After a previous leak at the hotel, they'd waived all fees for William's meeting. Complimentary transport, security, a reception after the auction, and even a generous discount on their global membership. Given such hospitality, there was no need to look elsewhere. Bodyguards were essential. Without them, he wouldn't have made it out the door. Reporters clamored for a glimpse as they arrived at the hotel, but Anthony's law firm had arranged an auctioneer and everything else was in hand. After days of media blitz, no one was surprised by today's auction. Everyone expected companies with real muscle to show up. Anthony had told William that many medium-sized firms had allied to bid collectively, planning to split regional rights afterward. More than 10 times as many bidders had registered as a few days before. After 9, the auctioneer took the stage and welcomed the room. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Christie's Golden Gavel, and I will be your auctioneer today. It's a pleasure to be here. The auction now begins." He waved a document bag at the bidders with a joking flourish. "This here is a bag of papers worth over 100 million pounds. Each sheet is worth 3 million. I hope none of you feel shortchanged." Laughter rippled through the room. The bag did indeed contain only documents, but they were the documents that mattered. He grew serious. Contained in this packet is a joint declaration from 3 of London's leading law firms, guaranteeing that the full copyright to Plants vs. Zombies is held by Mr. William Devonshire, with no disputes. This transaction is underwritten by the country's largest insurance firm. The buyer must pay in full within 7 days of the sale, and in the event of breach, the insurer will pay twice the auction amount. Any questions? There were none. The auctioneer lifted his gavel. "Ladies and gentlemen, the most exciting moment has arrived. The starting bid for the full copyright of Plants vs. Zombies is 100 million pounds. Bidding starts now." The paddle for 100 million went up immediately. "Gentleman number 19 bids 100 million, the auctioneer announced. "Any other bids?" 105 million. 110. In a few rounds, the price leapt to 110. William, watching from his seat, gave himself a small, satisfied thumbs up. The media work had paid off. 120 million, another voice called. A representative from Blackstone raised the paddle. A Disney delegate responded with 125 million. Chapter 15. At that price, the bidders began to hesitate. William watched the Carrefour representative sit out the bidding entirely, as if he were merely there to spectate. Earlier at the venue, that man had confidently told William his board had authorized him and Carrefour would do everything to win the game's ownership. Was that what he meant by everything? He couldn't even pretend anymore. Had the money scared him off? 130 million. The Best Buy representative snapped, glaring at the Disney delegates. This time Disney's bidder hesitated for a long moment. His assistant stayed glued to the phone, apparently reporting back to headquarters. "Any more bids? First call for bids. Second call for bids. 133 million. Just before the final call, Disney raised the bid. Everyone in the room saw the Best Buy people look at the Disney team like sworn enemies. Disney's move had cost them dearly. Gritting his teeth, Best Buy answered 135 million. Despite the auctioneer's prods, Disney did not bid again. They clearly didn't consider this a must-win. The auctioneer boomed. "Third call for bids. Sold." He brought down the gavel with a resounding bang. The sale was over. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all. This auction is officially concluded," he said, stepping down. William shook hands and posed for photos with the Best Buy representative, who still looked pleased. Led by their lawyers, both sides sat at the signing table. William signed the contract under his lawyer's guidance. Best Buy signed insurance agreements with an insurer and arranged guarantees with a bank. Their payment was split. 40% would be transferred to William's account in England and the other 60% to an offshore company's account in the British Virgin Islands. The insurance and bank guarantee cost Best Buy 4% of the total, plus 1% for the law firm, a fee of 6.75 million pounds. William thought it reasonable. Paying a few million to ensure the money arrived within a week was worth it. If it dragged on for months, there would be too many variables. If Best Buy failed to transfer the funds on time, the insurer and bank would compensate him and then pursue Best Buy for reimbursement. After signatures, everyone took a commemorative group photo and moved to a reception at the Hilton. William worked the room briefly, chatted with some charity representatives, and politely greeted several attractive women who somehow wound up at the event. He would have liked to talk more, but none of them were his type. He drifted to the buffet alone. He hadn't eaten since morning and was starving. As he piled food on his plate, a voice came from behind. "Hello, William." He turned. The man who had introduced himself as James Bond last time stood there with a glass of wine, smiling. William remembered Bond's earlier manner and, teasing, replied, "I actually don't remember your name, Mr. Bond." Bond played along with a laugh. "Thank you for remembering me, and congratulations, William, the youngest billionaire in England. You have a lot to be proud of." The performance was over the top, but William let it slide. "All right, Mr. Bond, you don't need to flatter me. If you came to talk business, just say so." He wasn't keen on dealing with agents. Their interest usually meant trouble. He had secrets he couldn't expose. The system and the magic were absolutely off limits. Bond must have sensed William's guardedness. "I'm not here for trouble. I'm here to introduce you to someone." "Who?" William asked. "Just come with me. It's not far. The hotel's coffee shop." Bond led him through the reception and toward a side room. Two tall, burly bodyguards stood at the coffee shop entrance, which suggested the person inside had a special status. Inside, Bond guided William to a woman in her 60s. Bond stepped back and fell silent. Before William even entered fully, his instincts and a flicker of spiritual perception had already hinted at who she was. The woman extended her hand. "William Devonshire," she said. "You can call me M." William, careful and slightly stunned, shook her hand. "It's a pleasure, M. I'm William Devonshire. May I ask why you wanted to see me?" She looked at him with a rueful admiration. Not yet 20, and he'd become a billionaire through his own efforts, a remarkable heir to his grandfather. "May I call you William?" "Of course," he said. M wasted no time with pleasantries. "William, I'm here to invite you to join a newly established department." William almost laughed. "I'm sorry, M, but you should know my plans. I've just come into a large sum of money, and I need it to realize my ideas. I'm going to start my own company. I don't intend to work for anyone else." M nodded, as if she had expected that answer. "We aren't an ordinary organization, William. Please look at this." Her aide handed him a file. The first thing he saw was a photograph of his maternal grandfather, Henry Westminster Devonshire. Puzzled, William flipped through the documents. The revelation hit him. His grandfather had been a member of MI6, codename W. Henry had joined MI6 at 18 and served until his death. At the back of the file was a letter addressed to William. In it, Henry expressed a wish that William join MI6 after his 20th birthday to inherit his career, and the codename W, a title held in their family since William's great-grandfather. William stared. He had no memory of his grandfather being an agent. Then, like a switch flipping, a mechanical voice echoed inside his head. "Ding! Special skill activated. Knowledge. The host can access information related to agents, assassins, terrorists, and special forces. Faction system unlocked. Choose lawful or chaotic. Faction rewards will be granted upon joining." The system, which had been dormant, awoke and presented him the choice. Lawful meant acknowledging and abiding by order, obeying law and morality. Chaotic meant deliberately breaking laws and moral codes with conviction. William chose lawful without hesitation. He had no desire to become an agent of chaos. After everything he'd been through, he wanted stability. He had worked hard to get rich and intended to enjoy that life. He wasn't about to start a campaign to destabilize the world, though he would quietly deal with anyone who tried to ruin his peace. Ding! Host has chosen the lawful faction. Reward, 1 cubic meter portable storage space. William fought down a grin. A portable storage space could be incredibly useful. At first, his mind leapt to smuggling and quick profits. Then he scolded himself. He was a billionaire now. Petty schemes weren't his style. Seeing him absorbed in the file, M gave Bond a look. Bond stepped forward, his expression softening. "William, are you all right?" he asked. William met his gaze. Bond's concern felt genuine, which puzzled him. These elite agents were not known for softness. Bond explained, "More than 10 years ago, I served under your grandfather. Before I joined the Zero section and took my code name, your grandfather taught me a great deal. I transferred to M's command after he passed. I know your mother, and I even held you when you were small. Do you remember the toy car I gave you for your 10th birthday?" William's expression shifted. The memory surfaced suddenly and vividly. He remembered the toy car. For a moment, he couldn't place why the man felt so familiar. Then other memories, echoes from a previous life, snapped into focus. Recognition turned to fury. "You bastard!" William exploded. He stepped forward, grabbed Bond by the collar, and with a single motion lifted the man, over 1.8 meters tall and broad, clean off his feet, and held him aloft with one hand. Chapter 16. William's sudden outburst sent Mrs. M stumbling back. Her personal assistant and bodyguard, Bill Tanner, barked, "Stop, William! Put Bond down!" and reached for his hip, pulling a Glock. William had just seen countless combat techniques in his mind, memories of agents and special forces training he'd absorbed. He recognized Bill's move immediately and knew the gun was coming up. Without thinking, he fumbled in his pocket with his left hand for a key and, using Mage Hand, sent it whipping toward Bill's right wrist. He aimed with restraint, the blunt end of the key, not the tip, because he wasn't trying to maim. Bill felt a flash of white and a sharp sting across his wrist. His grip went numb, and the Glock slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor. Two more bodyguards at the door pushed in, rifles raised. Before they could bring the scopes to bear, a sudden white flash and sharp pain hit their wrists too. Their hands loosened, the sniper rifles clanged to the floor, and oddly, coins scattered ahead of them as if tossed by an invisible hand. "Bond," the man William had gripped shouted quickly. "Stop, everyone, I'm fine, I'm fine. Hunt, Steve, I'm fine. William, calm down, calm down." Rage made William's voice low and cold. "You bastard, I remember you now. You caused my grandfather's death." He tightened his hold on Bond's throat. The spatial magic training at Camartage had been amplifying him. He could now lift 200 kilograms with one hand. It would have been uncannily easy to snap a neck. Bill tried to stoop and retrieve the fallen Glock, but William had already extended the belt on his waist, a leather strap he'd fashioned himself that could lengthen with a thought, and used Mage Hand to snare the weapon. He wasn't a whip user, but the combination of the expanding belt and the invisible spell made it look like expert whip work to anyone who didn't know magic existed. The belt retracted and returned to his hip, bringing the Glock with it. William handled the weapon with the same calm that came from having seen rifle drills and sniper manuals in his mind. One-handed, he disengaged the safety, chambered around, and trained the pistol's sights on the two bodyguards by the door. "Slowly kick the Glocks on the floor away," he ordered. They obeyed without hesitation. They had just watched him load a pistol with one hand. They knew they were outmatched. They shoved their weapons away and stepped in front of Mrs. M as human shields. William finally let some of his anger drain away. He didn't want to humiliate Mrs. M more than necessary. With his left hand, he ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber, tossed the gun aside, and eased his grip on Bond. "Nash," he snarled. "You're that bastard, Nash. Tell me how my grandfather died, or I'll snap your neck." Bond rubbed his throat. He had felt the raw intent and the terrifying force in William's grip, and had not expected a 19-year-old to be able to subdue him so completely. He had watched William's transformation with a mix of disbelief and grudging respect. "Don't worry, William. 5 years ago, I did avenge Henry. Eric died in front of me. I watched him take his last breath," Bond said. Mrs. M, expression back to her usual austere neutrality, watched William carefully. When she spoke, her words were precise and edged with cold anger. "All right, there's been a misunderstanding, but it looks like we've reached an understanding. However," she paused, studying his face. Seeing him relatively steady, she continued, voice clipped. "William, it appears your grandfather Henry broke MI6 rules. He left a lot for you and secretly trained you. Your personnel file shows nothing to explain skills like that. What's more infuriating is that you concealed them for 10 years. You're a master of deception, William Devonshire, fitting heir to that old fox Henry." By the time she finished, her eyes were hard. She suspected that Henry had not only taught William these skills, but had left written instructions and plans as well. How else to explain this? William's performance today was a flagrant violation of MI6 protocol. If Henry were alive, Mrs. M thought, she would have put him behind bars. The more she thought about it, the angrier she grew. To be outplayed by a 19-year-old who had been right under her nose for a decade, while she'd spent years hunting down the members of the legendary W team, was humiliating. For 10 years, she had Chevry lead, searched the small house William once occupied, even ransacked the Devonshire family's old castle in Oxfordshire countless times. The W team had always been the one thing she couldn't control at MI6. She'd been convinced Henry had disbanded it in a deal with her, left her the promise that when William turned 20, she would find him and that he would inherit the W codename. But now she wondered if she'd been duped. Perhaps Henry had been preparing William in secret all along. "William Devonshire," she demanded, cold as ice. "Where did you learn those skills?" William felt the chill of her stare. He swallowed and said, "I found them while going through my grandfather's things. I practiced them for fun, like he asked me to." His voice was steady, but his eyes flicked around, keeping track of exits and hands. He didn't fully understand what Mrs. M was getting at, but with both his grandparents dead, William had no one left to contradict him. Blaming Henry felt safe. "Practiced for fun?" Mrs. M's tone was razor sharp. "Do you take us for fools? You've been training in secret for years and hiding it. What else are you hiding? Where did Henry conceal his secrets?" Bond stepped forward then. "Madam, this is outside regulations. You can't interfere in W team matters." Mrs. M's glare cut through him. "The W team no longer exists," she said. "Henry has been dead 10 years. As head of MI6, I have the right to know who remains. That team has been silent for a decade. I must know whether they've defected." She looked back at William. "Tell me everything about the W team." William was genuinely bewildered. W team? It meant nothing to him. He hadn't found any reference to such a unit among Henry's things. "I don't know what you mean," he said, baffled. "I didn't find any W team records, only some Devonshire family secrets. Henry didn't even leave me a single pound." Mrs. M's eyes narrowed. "Tell me what Henry left behind. Everything." "I don't know what to tell you," William replied. "I don't know what exactly was in those things. And even if there were family secrets, how could I hand them over to outsiders? I'm not part of the Devonshire family." To William, his answers were honest. To Mrs. M, they were evasive. He had been too naive in how he'd handled the confrontation. His reluctance to cooperate only hardened her conviction that he was hiding something. Chapter 17. She suspected William knew the secrets of W Group, but the truth was even stranger. William was hiding the secret of the Marvel Universe system, something he would never reveal to anyone. Not to his mother, Lena, nor to his future wife or children. No one would hear a word about the system from him. The director of British military intelligence stared at William and smiled suddenly. "William Devlin, I'm now certain you know the secrets of W Group. As director, I order you to tell me everything you know. I have that right, or I will arrest you for endangering national security." Before William could answer, someone opened the private room door and stepped out. William, on instinct, scanned the newcomer with his mind. The man who emerged said to the director, "No, madam, you don't have that right." Startled, the director turned and recognized him. "Gareth Mallory, what are you doing here?" Gareth Mallory bowed slightly. "Madam, you're here to meet the new head of W Group. As chairman of the Intelligence and Security Committee, shouldn't I be privy to this? Forgive me, but you really don't have authority over W Group." When W Group was formed, it was decided that everything about it would be accountable only to the Security Committee, and the Security Committee is accountable only to the Prime Minister. You're overstepping. He paid no further mind to the director and instead extended his hand toward William. "Mr. William Devlin, it's a pleasure to meet you." William shook it quickly. "William Devlin, it's a pleasure, sir." Gareth nodded curtly at the director, then turned back to William. "Will you let me call you William?" William nodded. "Good. Come with me, William. Let's find somewhere to talk and have a drink. I'll tell you what you're curious about." "All right," William said. "We can go to the hotel restaurant. It's lunchtime, and I've heard the roasted cod there is excellent." Gareth laughed. "A rich man treating? Of course I'll go. Let's try it." They went to the Hilton Hotel restaurant and ordered. As wine arrived, Gareth began. "The Devlin family has served Britain's special departments for over 140 years, he said, staring at his glass. "I never expected that a once prominent family would be reduced to just you, a 19-year-old. You must be wondering why military intelligence couldn't or didn't activate W Group for 10 years, right?" William nodded. "It's not that the director couldn't activate W Group. In many ways, she couldn't," Gareth continued. "W Group has been under the Devlin family's control for a century and more. Even the committee director doesn't know who serves in W Group, only that the head must be a Devlin. The complete membership records are backed up in a bunker outside Buckingham Palace. William blinked. In Buckingham Palace? Gareth smiled wryly. Yes, centuries ago, the royal family and the nobility controlled intelligence, and crucial backups were kept in that bunker. The tradition stuck, even after power shifted to Downing Street. The only thing the nobility still explicitly controls in intelligence is that bunker. He sipped the wine William poured and went on. W Group began as an action team, root out and eliminate traitors within Britain. Departments didn't want to hand leverage over to others, so each formed its own oversight. Over the years, W Group became less useful, silent for a decade, until World War II, when German intelligence exposed secrets and showed us there were many traitors. Then W Group regained value. But a team silent for 10 years couldn't be expected to do quick work. Traitors aren't easy to catch. After the war, with relative global peace, W Group's role changed again. For the past decades, it has been an independent department within military intelligence, assigned by the Security Committee to handle special security matters, protecting the royal family and dealing with crises. It is accountable only to the committee. The people inside are top experts, and naturally the committee wants them. There's something few know, Gareth added, leaning closer. All the leading members of the committee are aristocrats. Whenever the committee is formed, those leaders choose who serves. They pick whom they like, and those who don't dislike nobles. So a super expert group like W Group ended up controlled by the aristocratic Devlin family. Surprising, isn't it? William's face showed disbelief. In his world, the nobility had already been eclipsed by Downing Street. He couldn't imagine they still wielded such power here. Gareth noticed and snorted. "You idiot," he muttered. "Do you know why your grandfather and his 3 brothers died? They died for England. It's because of nobles like them that the committee stayed in our hands. That privilege was bought with the blood of our ancestors. No one should think of taking it away." William sat up. "Then you're a noble too?" "Of course," Gareth said. "Otherwise, I couldn't be chairman. You are noble by blood as well. We're on the same side. Don't think that because you don't hold a title now, you're outside all this. The Duke of Devonshire still thinks highly of you. If he didn't, do you think a reclusive duke would suddenly get cornered by reporters? The earldom of Devlin in Oxford is reserved for you, if you want it. Many people are watching. You'll want to choose whose side to be on." "Is it that simple? Can I just claim the title if I want it?" "The title is already inherited by someone else. English law doesn't just change because we wish it," William said, unconvinced. Gareth rolled his eyes. "How could you ask such a naive question? How did the current Earl come by his title?" "Your grandfather arranged everything. The current Earl is a Devlin, yes, but he has no children. Henry signed a contract with the Earl before the royal family and the great nobles. If the Earl dies childless, the title reverts to you. The Earl is already 65, and years of waiting have yielded nothing. I heard after his recent checkup it was confirmed he can no longer have children. Do you grasp that?" William considered it but remained skeptical. "Even so, I have no immediate right to inherit. Other male relatives could claim it. English inheritance law isn't so straightforward." Gareth let out a sharp laugh. "People like Henry Winston Devlin are cunning. Maybe your branch is cursed, or maybe it was engineered. Among your branch, only you and the current Earl have verifiable proofs in the House of Lords. With no other heirs under noble inheritance law, you are the registered heir. As long as you don't refuse, before long you'll be the Earl of Devlin of Oxfordshire. Yes, you'll face hefty inheritance tax. Many noble families placed assets in trusts to avoid this, but your branch didn't. Henry was ruthless. He was careful that other branches couldn't snatch the inheritance. Those who could afford the tax won't have the bloodline paperwork. Those who have the paperwork won't be able to pay. Even the Duke of Devonshire is concerned the heir may not have the funds. Honestly, Henry must have feared you couldn't afford the succession." William bristled. "If I couldn't inherit, I'd just hand it to the government." Gareth grinned. "That's the spirit. But these things have already been set in motion. The Duke has convinced the reluctant Earl. Tomorrow, the Earl will go to the House of Lords to register you as his heir, and the media will report it. Henry arranged all this. You won't have the option to refuse." William felt that something else was being kept from him. People like Gareth and the Duke couldn't be acting out of pure generosity. He couldn't believe they had no demands. He asked the question that had been eating at him. "And what about the Oxford Statute? What is its role in all this?" Gareth's expression grew serious. "The Oxford Statute of 1258 has long been held by the Earls of Oxford. Henry never told anyone where it was before he died. He told us only to make sure you could inherit the title, then you would be able to find the statute yourself. We've been searching for 10 years and found nothing. Consider it a test." William swallowed. "And if I can't find it, what happens? Will you be angry enough to kill me?" Gareth's face was unreadable for a moment, then he broke into a half-smile. "You think too dramatically. If you can't find it, you'll have failed this part of your duty. But killing you? No. You'd be far more useful alive, if nothing else, as a reminder that some secrets are better guarded." William felt a chill at the words. The conversation had opened more doors than it closed. Family bloodlines, hidden documents, and an old statute tied to his inheritance. He was officially drawn into a world of noble obligations and ancient tests, and there was no clear path back to the life he'd known. Chapter 18. Gareth Mallory looked at him as if he were an imbecile. "What century do you think this is? You can't just go around assassinating nobles. Even if you somehow did, you still wouldn't be one of us. You'll never win our approval or be allowed into the inner circle." Though Gareth said it casually, William didn't buy it. He knew that with his Celestial Empire bloodline, no matter what he did, he wouldn't be welcomed into the core of English nobility. So be it. He didn't care. Why worry about titles and approvals? If he could make money, he could build his own circle. With the W team at his disposal, he could recruit a private security force to protect his assets and family. Whether he ever bothered with royal security or state matters would be according to his own mood. After all, his loyalties didn't come from being English. Gareth noticed William sitting quietly and said eagerly, "William, do you remember anything? That statute is important. If you can find it, it'd be tremendous." William sifted through his memories. He vaguely recalled Henry whispering things to him on his deathbed, but he'd need to verify them. "If I find it, do I have to show it to you?" he asked, setting a trap. Gareth jumped at the bait. "Of course that'd be best, William." William suspected these men had other motives. The Oxford Statute was the Earl of Oxford's most important credential, annotated by the Council of Nobles, and only an earl in possession of it was truly considered the Earl of Oxford. He wondered what secret the statute held that made the nobles so obsessed. "I think Henry did tell me something," William said, pretending to think hard. He tapped his head and then lowered his face as if covering it, but in truth he was using his mental capacity to probe Gareth. Gareth stared at him, nervous hands fidgeting. After a few minutes of toying with him, William suddenly clapped his hands and said, "Got it!" "What was it? Tell me," Gareth demanded, rising to his feet. William put on a show. "Gareth, why are you so tense? Oh, now I remember. Henry said that if I found the statute, I only needed to photograph the third paragraph from the end and give it to you." Gareth's face hardened. He realized William was teasing him, payback for William's earlier trickery over the Devonshire family amulet. "Damn you, William Devonshire. You and Henry are both rogues. That old fox Henry, he used your family secret, the one we've guarded for generations, to blackmail us into letting you inherit." William lifted his wineglass and took a sip. "We're all rogues in our own way, Gareth. Compared to you lot, I'm practically saintly," he said with a laugh. Gareth's voice grew serious. "William, you don't understand how important that statute is. It could change everything. The text at the end must not be revealed to anyone. If it were, it would cause terrible chaos." William shrugged. "If it's so important, why ask me for it? I don't even know what's written in the statute." Henry showed it to the Duke, and after seeing it, the Duke warned Henry and the council to guard it. According to them, the text at the end, if it ever got out, would bring about disaster. "So the Oxford Statute itself only matters to the Devonshires," William said, curious. "What you're really worried about is whatever's written after it." "Yes," Gareth admitted. "The statute itself doesn't frighten us. It's that passage at the end. The Duke terrified us when he spoke of it. Some of us wanted to read it, others feared he was right and the world would fall into chaos if it were known. He hesitated, clearly torn. William's curiosity flared. I want to see what it says. I own the statute, so I should be allowed to look, right? Gareth gave him a look that said he thought the question ridiculous. I hope you find it, and I hope you don't. If you do, don't show it to me. I'm afraid I'd be tempted. If you find it, give the photographs to the Duke. Only he and His Majesty have seen it so far. Only they can confirm whether it's real. But don't delay. His health isn't good. William paused, then offered, I actually know how to find it. It might not even take me a day. Why don't we look for it together? Aren't you curious? Gareth's face betrayed agitation. He opened his mouth, closed it, finally slumped back into his chair, and cursed. William Devonshire, you're as exasperating as Henry Winter Devonshire. Both of you shameless tricksters. Be at Downing Street tomorrow when the Earl of Oxford's statement is read. You'll need to reselect your W team members. Without waiting for a reply, Gareth left. William watched him go and shook his head. Upright and stoic, after decades as a secret agent, he must have drunk too much. William glanced at the red wine beside him, 12%, and laughed at himself. Maybe he had. Press conference at 1:30 p.m. William returned to the hotel conference hall. He was due to hold a press conference with Blockbuster at 2. As soon as he entered, his anxious lawyer Anthony rushed over. William, where have you been? I've been looking everywhere. The press conference is about to start. Come on, you need makeup. Makeup, William protested. He'd grown up a simple country boy and never imagined TV appearances needed makeup. Of course, Anthony said, half amused and half exasperated. Photos and camera lights change how you look. Trust me. The makeup artist spent 20 minutes on him. By the time William reached the stage, the host was already speaking. Dozens of reporters filled the room, and TV cameras were lined behind them. William was stunned. He hadn't realized the event would draw so much attention. Did Blockbuster invite all these reporters? He asked Anthony quietly. No, Anthony smiled. They came for you. You have huge news value. William blinked. Me? William, you're now the youngest billionaire in England. £13.5 billion. About $22.6 billion. A self-made magnate who started from nothing. Teenagers will look up to you, and you're handsome enough to be an idol. This will make my career too. The host introduced the panel. Please welcome Mr. Roger Moore, Vice President of Blockbuster Group and England's own game developer, Mr. William Devonshire. William, Roger Moore, and several bankers, insurers, and attorneys took the stage to polite applause. Sitting at the table, William felt nervous. It was his first press conference. Roger Moore spoke first, outlining Blockbuster's scale and vision, then announced, Blockbuster is a company that pursues innovation. We are pleased to have reached an agreement with Mr. William Devonshire. Blockbuster has purchased the full copyright of Plants vs. Zombies for $226 million. We are confident we can promote Plants vs. Zombies globally. William offered a few polite words in return, complimenting Blockbuster and thanking them for valuing the game. Then the floor opened to questions. A sea of hands shot up. The host picked a BBC reporter, an attractive woman, who stood and asked, Mr. Devonshire, I'm Diana Rigg of the BBC. Why do you think Plants vs. Zombies commanded such a high price? And as a successful under-20 self-made billionaire, what advice do you have for young people? William adjusted the microphone. She'd asked 3 questions in one breath, but he smiled and answered candidly. I don't like giving advice, but I can share my experience. Follow your interests. When you get an idea, act on it. Don't worry about what others say. Push through, even when it's hard. The rest is up to luck. That sale happened because the right product met the right partner at the right time. He hesitated, then added, the game is fun and playable. Otherwise, it wouldn't have sold 150,000 copies with no promotion, only word of mouth among university students. But even so, a purchase price this high is unusual. It's not normal for a game like this to fetch £1.35 billion. His last remark, calling the price abnormal, sent a ripple through the hall. Reporters began shouting questions at once, and the room descended into chaos. Roger Moore looked at William with surprise and a touch of irritation. Why say that now, before the money was transferred? Did William want to jeopardize the deal? Chapter 19. William smiled at Roger Moore and gave him a reassuring nod, then tapped the microphone. Once the reporters quieted down, he said, "Please be quiet if you want me to continue." When everyone settled, William, smiling with confidence, began. "Actually, when I first decided to sell the game, I considered asking for £200. The room stirred. William continued quickly. "Why £200? Because to me that's a fair, reasonable price. But in this era, too few people can see the full potential of a massively popular game. That's how Blockbuster found a loophole and got such a bargain. A lot of people underestimate the value of game-related merchandise. Think about it. A typical game wouldn't go for £1.35 billion. No matter how well a game sells, it's hard to sell over 20 million copies in a few years. Game sales alone wouldn't generate £1.35 billion. But big corporations ask the same questions we do. Why would Blockbuster pay so much to buy the full rights to this game?" The reporters fell into thought. "Yes, why? Big companies don't throw money away," someone muttered. "William, why is that?" BBC reporter Diana Riggs stood up, waving eagerly. She had a knack for seizing moments on live TV. The cameras swung to her, and she beamed. "It's about the target audience and the current economy," William replied. "Look at the stock market around 2000. The middle class is flush, and people have more money for entertainment. Ask yourselves, what do young people like these days?" He saw heads nodding and didn't let him suspense drag on. "Many of us born in Europe and America in the 80s are coming of age in the 90s, a time of unprecedented material prosperity. That abundance feeds a kind of decadence and nihilism among young people. They're anti-tradition, anti-dogma, anti-authority. Things middle-aged people dismiss as lowbrow suddenly become fashionable to them. They crave individuality and uniqueness, anything that makes them look cool. That's why kids in London wear hats and t-shirts printed with zombies, because it's fashionable. So Carrefour sold 430,000 hats and t-shirts in half a month in just a few counties around London. Think about all of Europe and America. I'd even bet Blockbuster could recoup £1.35 billion in a year from merchandise alone. It was a great deal for them." "Wow." The reporters stared at William and at Roger Moore. Roger's grin stretched so wide his eyes nearly disappeared. He was genuinely delighted. William had negotiated a steep price, but if his analysis held true, Blockbuster had landed an extraordinary bargain. Roger imagined his position rising, maybe a promotion, and resolved to keep close to William. Whether William's predictions came true or not, his analysis alone would drive merchandise sales. This young man might be the source of the next hit, someone to watch. William turned to Roger with a smile. "To make Blockbuster even more confident and to prompt payment sooner, I'll give you one free suggestion." Laughter rippled through the room. Roger laughed the loudest, now fully charmed. "With the rise of the internet," William went on, "in a couple of years, when the game's popularity stabilizes, we could launch an online version, a 4-player network mode." Before he could finish, Roger cut in, careful and immediate. "William, Blockbuster could hire you as a game designer. Or if you don't have the time, you could be a consultant. We'll pay you for any plans you create. Let's discuss future development privately. We trust your game instincts. Rest assured, you'll be compensated." Roger guardedly kept the reporters at bay. He didn't want William's ideas broadcast where competitors could copy them. William realized he'd been indiscreet and nodded agreement to discuss the plans in private. The reporters, however, were not pleased. Their scoop had vanished. Voices rose in protest, and a few hot-headed journalists began openly cursing Roger. He sat unperturbed, like a pig in boiling water, ignoring them while nervously watching William. William shook his head and signaled that he wouldn't press the point. After the shouting died down with no further response from the stage, the reporters reluctantly sat. William apologized. "I'm sorry, that was my fault. The last topic concerned the game's future and profits, and out of consideration for the buyer, I'll discuss it with Blockbuster privately. I apologize to everyone." Ignoring the remaining clamor, William continued, "I don't think anyone can object now to Blockbuster spending £1.35 billion to acquire the game. To answer the BBC reporter's question from earlier, my childhood and adolescence weren't easy. I had a lot of doubts and troubles. I want to thank my mother and my grandparents in heaven. Their love gave me care and warmth in a cold, discriminatory world. We weren't rich, but we were happy. His voice softened. Many people watching on television felt a lump in their throats. William's mother, Lena, watched him and wept, whispering, "William, your mom's pride. Henry and Tanya would be proud of you too." "I didn't have many friends," William went on. "When I was little, nobody played with me at school, so I played by myself. I treated math problems as games, reading as a hobby, and the library as a playground. When I was bored, I'd play Texas Hold'em against myself, go swimming, Ralph, and even practice archery. You might not know this, but I'm pretty good at archery. My math skills let me calculate where an arrow will land the moment I release it. I can look at a target and hit the bullseye with my eyes closed. The target's 70 meters away," he added. "At my entrance exam, I got a perfect sports score. My archery that day scored 60 with 6 arrows." "Incredible. How is that possible?" The reporters exchanged skeptical looks. At 70 meters, the bullseye isn't visible. Even Olympic champions couldn't claim that feat easily. "Maybe after this press conference we can test it," William said with a grin. "What do you all think?" "Perfect. We'd love that." The audience cheered. Diana Rigg, ever quick to seize a camera-friendly moment, said, "William, the BBC can arrange everything. I just hope you won't back out. Keep your word, or I'll come to your house and block the door." "Okay, let's set a time," William agreed. A reporter nearby shouted, "Hey, William, don't think you can use this to date Diana Rigg. She belongs to all of us reporters in London. We'll stop you." Laughter exploded around the room. "Right, we'll go together to protect Diana Rigg and not give William a chance," others chimed in. William knew they were angling to attend the archery demonstration. None of them wanted the BBC to monopolize access. "Get lost, Rob. When did I become yours? If William wants to date me, I'll agree right now." Diana Rigg teased, then turned to William and added, winking, "William, do you want to date me? I'm single. Your chance." William felt a flicker of embarrassment and temptation. Diana Rigg was striking, confident, and attractive, and he had never before been courted by someone like her. The outburst drew mock outrage from teenage viewers, who branded Diana shameless for flirting with a younger man. With so many eyes on him, William hesitated and offered, "Maybe we can have dinner after the press conference." "Of course," Diana said, still winking. For her, William was an ideal prospect, talented, famous, handsome, and wealthy. If they became a couple, it would boost her profile too. Male reporters groaned. "No, Diana Rigg, don't do it. William Cavendish will take you whole. She's ours," they complained, more theatrically than seriously. "Okay, we'll be in touch," William said, cheeks reddening. He wasn't used to this kind of ribbing and felt awkward. "Get back to the topic, William. We don't want to hear flirting on live broadcast," someone shouted. The room wanted the interview to resume. William smiled and moved on. "I want to give 2 pieces of advice to my peers," he said. First, be resolute and don't worry about what others say. The strength of your will determines how far you can go. Conquer yourself and challenge yourself. Toughen your nerves. If you remain overly sensitive and avoid challenges, you'll live with superficial ease but inner anxiety. Build strong willpower. When life presents challenges, meet them head on. The reporters nodded in agreement. Second, read as much as you can, as long as you can stay fed and survive. If you want to change your situation or change the world, the most direct, simplest, and cheapest way is to read more. Knowledge changes destiny. I'm living proof. He added quietly, "But you need a system. Even an 8-year-old can learn to speak better, to act cuter, to play up to get what they want. Learning the skills matters." The room buzzed as the press conference wrapped, cameras clicking and voices rising with renewed curiosity about the game, the merchandise, and the young man at the center of it all. Chapter 20. To all the children of England, I solemnly recommend 2 books, How to Be Cute and The Self-Cultivation of an Actor. Study those 2 books, and maybe in 20 years, when you have kids of your own, you'll be able to tell at a glance whether your children are acting. Then you can say to them, "Child, I practiced acting when I was your age. Dad heartily recommends The Self-Cultivation of an Actor. Once you learn it, you'll be able to act convincingly, so Dad won't fall for your fake crying." A roar of laughter filled the venue. People doubled over at William's joke, and some reporters played along, pretending to ask where the self-cultivation of an actor could be bought. We must recommend it to our children. The TV audience laughed too. Cute kids all over began asking their parents where to find the 2 books William mentioned, dreaming that if they mastered them, they could get whatever they wanted. One 10-year-old English boy named Daniel Radcliffe heard William's words, got a copy of The Self-Cultivation of an Actor, and studied it earnestly. A year later, he landed the lead in the Harry Potter films. When he found fame, he credited William. "I want to thank William Devonshire. He taught me how to act. I follow his example and recommend The Self-Cultivation of an Actor to all children of England. Maybe you'll be the next Harry Potter." After that day, children across England hunted for How to Be Cute and The Self-Cultivation of an Actor. Before long, kids around the world were practicing too. Toddlers who couldn't read yet demanded their parents explain the books because their classmates were studying them. William had effectively cultivated a new reserve of talent for the global entertainment industry and given parents everywhere plenty of material to be embarrassed about. The authors and their families publicly thanked William since his offhand recommendation had made them a fortune. Stephen Chow in Hong Kong, 2 American Toms, and Sophie, the French Rose, all praised William in the media for his contribution to entertainment. Sophie, 34 and still breathtaking, was someone William would consider exchanging ideas with, but the 2 Toms, he'd rather not. Chapter 27. A Smart Mind Can Save Money. After the laughter subsided, a reporter asked, "Mr. William Devonshire, you're now one of the wealthiest young men in England. What are your plans now that you have that kind of fortune?" William paused. "First," he said, "I want to buy a big house for my mother, Lena. She worked too hard. I want her life to be easier so she can do what she enjoys without worrying about money." Applause broke out. "Second," he continued, "I'll put some money into projects I've always wanted to do. I have a lot of ideas. Last year I developed a new MP3 encoding mode, a lossy audio format I call WA. I also have some ideas for drones." Diana Rigg interrupted. "Excuse me, William, this WA mode you mentioned, that's new? Can you explain it in detail?" William glanced at Diana with mild annoyance. She crossed her arms and winked at him, making a cute face. He rolled his eyes, then nodded. "Since you asked, I'll explain briefly. Current MP3 players are too big, ugly, and their sound quality is mediocre. People who bought CDs can't easily convert them to MP3, and if you want to download legitimately, you often have to pay again. That's unfair." Everyone nodded. "Also, the free downloading that people do nowadays is killing the record industry. That can't be the long-term solution. Consumers want something simple, cheap, convenient, and high quality. So I created WA. It's less than half the size of a regular MP3 file, its sound quality is comparable to a CD, and you can copy your legally purchased CDs. It can also store more than 3 times the number of songs current players hold." Diana stood up without waiting for a formal invitation, looked at William with misty, admiring eyes, and asked, "So you're saying you found existing MP3s ugly, too small, and poor sounding, and you decided to invent one that meets your standards?" "Pretty much," William said with a sheepish grin. "I'm into engineering. When I care about something, I want to make it right." Seeing his shy expression made Diana even more excited about their evening date. She took it as proof he liked her. The reporters and viewers were stunned. "We know you're a genius," they thought, "but are you from another planet?" "William, when will we be able to buy this player?" a reporter asked. "I want one now. I'm sick of current MP3 players." "If the patent review goes quickly, it should be ready in about half a year," William said, tapping his temple. "Everything is in my head already. I even made a simple prototype at home." He reached into his pocket and produced a player the size of a cigarette box. "The official version will be smaller and thinner. This casing is crude plastic, and the components are second-hand. Want to hear it?" "Of course," everyone agreed. William turned the player on and held the earphones up to the microphone. "My Heart Will Go On" streamed out, and people who knew current players noticed immediately that the sound was far better. After one song, he turned it off. "In my vision, the new player should be simple, practical, and beautiful. When people first see it, they won't want to look away. It should represent fashion, youth, and vitality, and it must hold 1,000 songs." Success, to me, means people won't want to put it down after they buy it. Another round of applause. The reporters felt vindicated. They had come for news, and William kept delivering. After a moment, William glanced apologetically at Roger Moore, president of Blockbuster, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, back to our scheduled program. Mr. Rogers is getting cold feet out here. We should let him speak." Laughter. Roger Moore smiled into the microphone. "I'm not interested in the jokes right now, William. I want to know when I can buy that player and how much it will cost. What's its name?" William shrugged and grinned. "I call it the Y-Liston. If all goes well, it could be in stores in 3 months, maybe 6. Depends on when the authorities grant industry access permits. The components for the first generation are all available, and a contract manufacturer could make them quickly if I place an order today. As for price, I can't promise a figure now, but I guarantee it won't be more expensive than current MP3 players. My R&D costs were so low, I almost regret doing it alone, because it makes it hard to claim the 15 times R&D tax rebate the government offers." He made a mock helpless face at the cameras. More laughter. "Smart thinking saves money," someone cheered. "If you can cut the price in half again, we'll marry Diana to you on the spot." Diana glanced at William shyly, as if to say, "If you propose now, I'll say yes." Chapter 28. You should see a psychiatrist. With so many people watching, William ignored Diana's obvious flirting and the reporter's teasing. Roger Moore, seated beside him, winked in confirmation. "You lucky man, a beauty is throwing herself at you." William didn't believe Diana had fallen in love at first sight. English reporters, he thought, always had their eyes on a rich mark. Many would gladly ride his coattails. If she married him and later divorced, she'd get half his assets and be set for life. He wasn't cynical about love entirely, but he didn't trust timing. So many couples swore undying devotion only to split a few years later. England ranked high for infidelity. You might think France or Spain topped the list, but William loved winding people up with surprise answers. Better, he thought, to take a page from Hong Kong's playbook. Don't rush to marry. If it works, stay together. If not, move on. He checked his watch, signaling the host to move on. "William, I'm John Treason from The Sun," a reporter called. "We've heard that the Earl of Oxford named you his heir. Care to comment?" William bristled inwardly. "I haven't even inherited the title yet, and already people are speculating. The Sun moves fast. I only heard about this at noon." "How did you get that?" "I'll check my phone tomorrow. My technical skills are good. I might find out how the leak happened." Protest. John Treason snapped. "Mr. Devonshire, accusing the Sun of wiretapping is outrageous. I demand a public apology and compensation for damage to our reputation." William adopted a mock, "Are you serious?" expression and turned to his lawyer, Anthony. "Anthony, your firm's got business. If the Sun sues me, you'll handle it, right?" "No problem, William," Anthony said with a confident nod. "Our firm will be glad to represent you."